Hello, Brian here from Apologetics 101. Thank you for watching my channel, and we've got a special treat for you. And today we are going to be discussing one of the biggest mysteries since the inception of the Tomkins controversy. When it comes to Erika'S original video, and she does this also in her response to my Tomkins interview as well, how did Erika get less than 100% on her self-to-self analysis? Intuitively, we're thinking that should not even be possible, regardless what you think about Tomkins' method. That should not be possible. But we're going to be exploring that question today, and because I have made an incredible discovery that's going to alter how we view the Tomkins controversy from this point forward. And so without any further ado, let's dive into this. And don't change that channel. Don't touch that mouse clicker, for we're starting right now. Alright, and so it begins. The unmasking of Erika'S self-to-self analysis, pun intended. Alright, so today, okay, whenever you guys don't see me on camera, believe it or not, I'm doing a lot of work on a lot of these videos. I'm doing a lot of research. I'm buying books, talking to people, emailing people, interviewing people. I'm doing all sorts of things behind the scenes that y'all don't see, both before and after my videos are produced. So I do a lot of work on these videos, just to let you know. So just because I don't show a video in a couple weeks or something doesn't mean I'm not working hard on making videos. I work pretty hard on trying to get these videos together. Well, I wanted to sit there, and I've been wanting, since Dr. Carter first mentioned a book that specifically that a lot of geneticists use concerning blast. He called it the Blast book. The book itself is just titled Blast, and so I wanted to get that book. So I asked Dr. Carter, said, okay, just remind me what the name was. He told me what it was. I looked up on Amazon, bought the book, got it right here. So you can put it in front of the camera, right there. It's got a little fish on it. Let's see if I can show the fish. Yep, there you go. All right, that's the Blast book. But the names of the writers on it, there's 3 writers that wrote it, that co-authored the book together. You see their names: Dr. Ian Korf, Mark Yandel, and Joseph Bandel. All right, Dr. Ian Korf was the first name on the book. So, it was the first writer mentioned back in the About section in the books. So I decided to send Dr. Ian Korf an email. Now, typically when I send emails, what usually ends up happening is that the person will just email me back, or ignore my email, one or two. So not everybody answers emails. But some people do answer it, and when they do answer it, they just send me back an email, answering my question or responding to a particular criticism that I'm asking them about, or whatever the case may be. However, with Dr. Ian Korf, he did something different that I didn't expect. He sent a link, a Zoom link. Now, you guys know me pretty well by now. Most of y'all do. Y'all know I do my interviews in Zoom. And so I was like, okay, he sent a Zoom link. Okay, so I clicked on it, and next thing I know, I was there face-to-face talking with Dr. Ian Korf. Apparently, he likes doing a lot of his discussions that way, via Zoom. I didn't expect it, didn't schedule it, didn't plan for it. I didn't know it was going to even happen. But before I even knew it, I was face-to-face with this guy who literally wrote the book Unmasked. And so I asked him some specific questions about doing a self-to-self analysis using the BLAST algorithm, if it was possible to get below 100%. Now he goes into discussion about it, about noise in the background and things like that, and you're about to see the first clip. The first clip, Dr. Ian Korf did not actually. I had several conversations with him, and I recorded every conversation I've had with him, and I've had lots of email conversations with him as well. But I recorded every conversation I had with him, and he's an expert on BLAST, but he's also an evolutionist. Now, like I told him in email later on, I was not looking for the evolutionist. I was looking for the BLAST expert when I contacted him, and that was my intent. I know that he has certain evolutionary bias. It does come out. The more we delved into the controversy, the more his evolutionary bias came out. So so he tried to maintain as objective as possible, but eventually his bias didn't start showing. And now, of course, I'm biased too. I'm not saying that I don't have my own personal bias. I have my own personal bias as well. And so that's the nature of controversy. You tend to have your position, and the other person has their position, and you tend to interpret the data based on the position you already had, and things like that. So that happens. But interesting enough, any errors that I found that Dr. Korf made was only on the studies that Tomkins did, or on anything outside of his area of expertise. When he touched on BLAST, he was, accurate. He was right on the money. Even Dr. Carter agreed with him a lot of times. A lot of the stuff that he said. So it just one of those things where the errors only happen once you start moving further and further away from his area of expertise. When that happened, then there was mistakes that were made. A lot of his mistakes that were made involved the study of Dr. Tomkins. I don't think he fully understood it. He claimed at one point in the conversation to have read Tompkins' papers, and he probably did. So I'm not doubting or questioning that. But I don't think he fully understood what Tomkins had done. I've been involved in this controversy for a while. I've had lots of interactions with Dr. Tomkins, as well as an entire interview with him. And so I'm much more familiar with what Tomkins did or didn't do in this study. Later on, I'm going to show you an email where I actually asked him a specific question about something, and you'll see his answer on that. But anyway, but when it comes to the BLAST stuff, the stuff that he's actually an expert in, I found that he was really right on point. That's mainly what I wanted him for. And he did a really good job. And he thought Erika made some errors too. Now his evolutionary views kind of took over a lot of his thinking on Tomkins, but when it came to Erika, but he was willing to admit that Erika made some mistakes and so forth. So while I'm at it, I might as well make a disclaimer. Anything that Dr. Korf says in the clips I'm about to show you represent his position and beliefs and arguments and so forth. Any views that's coming out of my mouth, except when I refer back to emails and previous discussions that me and Dr. Korf have, are representative of my views and my position, my beliefs, my arguments, etc. I just want to throw out that disclaimer, so that way if anyone says, hey, that don't represent what Dr. Korf thinks, I know that. I know that. Because like I said, he does side with the evolutionist, obviously. But it doesn't matter at the end of the day, because when it comes to his expertise in BLAST, I was still able to utilize that information and move it forward. And so that's what I did. And of course I collaborate with other experts and stuff like that in their respective fields and so forth, including other bioinformatics as well, and including other evolutionary bioinformatics specialists, but we're not going to go into all that right now. But anyway, I did, so that way I can be able to make sure that my information is indeed correct. Alright, and I believe it is, and I'm about to unmask a very, how shall I put this? A very elusive problem, or not problem, but elusive mystery in this whole discussion. How did Erica get less than 100% on her self-to-self analysis? So me and Dr. Korf had our first discussion. He didn't exactly know what this was about at first because I was afraid that his bias would interfere with his judgment. All right, I didn't want to sit there and fully embrace him because I wasn't trying to drag him into the controversy. This is a very messy controversy, and I told him that through email later, that this is a very messy controversy. He really, and I warned him not to. You don't want to get involved in this, but he became interested in it and got himself involved in it, and but anyway. But I didn't want to sit there and get him involved, and so I was like trying my best not to tell him the whole thing. I wasn't lying to him. I wasn't going to lie to him, but I wasn't going to divulge the whole issue because I wasn't trying to drag him into the controversy. But anyway, eventually, but he did ask me for the YouTube channels involved, and so I told him, and he looked it up, and somehow he figured it out. I don't know if he figured it out or after he contacted Erica. Actually, he did say that he did tell me later that he contacted Erica following the first time. As soon as he got off the Zoom link with me the first time, he contacted Erica via email. She contacted him back, and it was, from what I understand, the email was very brief, and me and him had another discussion, and then him and Erica also talked it out, I think, via Zoom. She mentioned her more recent video, which I also plan on responding to some comments she made there, because she did a lot of straw man arguments. She assumed her position, and it was crazy, all the errors that she made in that video. But I'll deal with that later on down the road. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to deal with that, whether I'm going to do it as a response video, or I might just, because I'm planning on doing a video on Kynes in the Tomkins controversy. So I may just include that in there, so that way I can kill two birds with one stone. But we'll see how that goes. Once he realized what it was about, he had a different view. He thought maybe it was the E value. So we had a second discussion. This one I'm not going to show the clip of, because he actually ended up changing his mind later. He said that he still thinks the E value that Dr. Tomkins set would have created some noise, but he said it wasn't been enough to be a significant issue. And so he ended up changing his mind on the E value, and then deciding it was the problem that he divulged in the third clip. The third discussion that we have will be my second clip, and I will be showing that one. That one's on masking versus unmasking, and we talked about this, and so I figured out what happened with Erika'S self-to-self analysis at that point. And then I started thinking, okay, Tomkins is using the best alignment, so what's going on there? And Carter also entrenched into this mystery is the fact that Carter kept getting 100% identity. So how did Carter keep getting 100% identity if Erika'S getting less than 100%? Because when I originally contacted Dr. Ian Korf, I was wondering, is there a way? Because see, the only reason that I took the computer problems with the computer program idea that was suggested by Dr. Carter in his last response to this, the video response to this, is because that was the only thing I could figure out could be the problem. I'm like, okay, how in the world could this be an issue? Or how did she get less than 100%? And that was a mystery to me. And so that if there was a problem with the program, that would resolve the mystery. But I'm a Christian apologist. I tend to think outside the box, and so I'm sitting there thinking on this. I said, what if it's not her program? What if there's another issue? She's about to go and do a response to Carter, and maybe I want to get the heads up on this. What's really going on here? And so that's one of the motivations for me reaching out to Dr. Ian Korf in the first place. And so, like I said, as we went into this controversy, and he's discussing it with Erica, and he's discussing it with me, and his evolutionary bias was starting to thicken as we move forward. Of course, he was able to stay objective at first. Um, uh, he told me in the email that he said, give him a chance. That don't judge him on the basis of his beliefs, and I'm like, okay, all right, I can give you a chance. And he was a lot more objective when it came to Blast than I thought he was going to be, because he wasn't going to let Erica completely off the hook either, because he thought that there was things that Erica did as well that he thought was wrong, and so forth. And so as we move forward, um, we end up discussing this, and I did send him a couple more emails just to clarify some stuff. And so now, and me and Dr. Carter has also been going back and forth on this, and he was the first one. In fact, he's actually the only one that actually, what you're about to see right now, he was the only one that I threw up my position. He was able to help me hammer out a few details of it. And so I think that I've got it down now. If there's a couple things that I misunderstood with Carter and so forth, I'll pin it up at the top of the comment section, so that way everybody can kind of see that that I made that change, or whatever the case may be, or update some information. I sent Carter recently when I realized what he was trying to get through to me, and I saw it for myself when I did some blast reports. You're about to see some of that when I did some blast searches, and I sent him an email, but it's over the weekend. Right now, as I'm recording this, it's over the weekend, and I don't know. I was hoping he would respond over the weekend, and sometimes he will respond to emails over the weekends. If it's something simple, something he doesn't need to get send data to me, or do some further research on some stuff, and that sort of thing, he'll respond over the weekend if it's something really simple, something real quick. I was hoping that Zoe would respond on the weekend, but he hasn't yet. But then again, I've only sent it like maybe 2 or 3 hours ago, so he might not even read it yet. But any given case, if he does send it, I will make that update in the pin it at the top, and let you know what Dr. Carter said, or whatever change or updated information I need to do. But I think I've got down pretty good. And I was able to get through some of those issues and so forth. So, and we're going to be doing some blasting today. We're going to actually do some experiments in Blast. It's not going to be to the degree that Tomkins did it. Certainly not. It won't even be to the degree that Dr. Carter did it, and it won't even be to the degree that Erica did it, because I'm not really trying to do a series of experiments. Whether instead, I'm only trying to do one thing. I'm testing self to self, one, and two, I'm also testing different parameters regarding self to self, and three, I'm illustrating what occurred so you guys can understand. But in the midst of all that, I'm also going to be showing you the clips I have of the discussions that I had with Dr. Ian Korf. All right. Without further ado, let's dive in.
All right, cool. All right. All right. Well, first of all, let me explain to you a little bit about how BLAST works, and that is that alignments occur in what we call a search space. Okay. So, for example, this is sequence 1, and this is sequence 2, and an alignment is some similarity in that search space, which could be like out here. This represents an alignment. What an alignment represents is where two sequences are similar. For example, if we're just using the alphabet, okay, and this is the word cat over here. When we have an alignment, that means we have the same word over here, cat. That's what an alignment is. Cat, cat. They're in alignment with each other. And this might have said other stuff in it. The hungry cat is whatever, and this is saying something else about cats. So the only place that they're similar to each other is this part where it says cat. Okay. So when you have an alignment in a search space, and it's not through the whole thing, we call that a local alignment. And that is opposed to another thing, which is called a global alignment. A global alignment requires you to have all of the words have to match. Like, you have to find the best part of it, not just one small region that's similar. You have to have every part of every word aligned up to the other. So if we made a sentence over here, like the, and we'll just keep the spaces out of it. The cat was cold. And we have another sentence going the other direction. And it's like the, oops, I don't mean that. The rat died. All right, let's imagine we have these two sentences. Well, in a global alignment, everything has to line up. And this part's easy to align up. The cat, the rat, like, and the T's line up, the A's line up, the whatever. There is this one part here that doesn't line up very well. The C and the R, right? Like, these things don't line up very well. That's okay. In an alignment, you can have a mismatch. The letters don't have to be identical. You get a reward generally when the letters are the same, and you get a penalty when they're different. So the C and the R don't, but that's okay. The rest of it's aligning pretty well. What do you do with all this part? Was cold and died. Like, none of these W-A-S cold, none of these things actually match other than the D. Well, and they're not even the same length. Died is, 4 letters, and was cold is 7 letters. But a global alignment has to use up every single letter. And so what happens is that, yes, you end up making an alignment through this D, but then somehow you have to get over to here. And because this one's longer, you'll end up with having some kind of gaps associated with it. And then another part where you can make something like this. So an alignment can contain areas where there are matches between the letters. They don't have to be identical matches. They just have to be aligned across from each other. And then they can have gaps in it. And what this would look like would be something like this. The cat was cold. And then it has to align with, I've done this in constant ways, the rat died. So how do we put these things together? Well, we sometimes have to put spaces in between them so that the letters all match up with each other. Can I choose a different font in this stupid thing? No, I can't. But I have to choose, like, the D has to, let's imagine this D, I have to put some spaces in here to make this thing show up. And these things would be like gaps. Like, I have to space things out so that some parts will match up with each other. That's why alignments can also sometimes have gaps in them, but we would draw those gaps as looking like letters like this, like symbols like this. Of course, I should have, the W is a bad choice because it's so wide. Anyway, alignments contain gaps in them, even if they're, so global alignments, even local alignments contain a gap in it. A local alignment with a gap in it would look like, well, here's a local similarity, and this time I'm going to draw the gap in the other direction here than it was in the other one. And this represents a gap in one of the sequences such that no letters of this sequence over here, S1, are using, but I am using some in here. So the sequence over here, you would get, you've got the letters coming from here and then the letters coming from here on the left, but on the right, it kind of skips over. That's my position. It's using up letters here in this sequence, but not the other one. Anyhow, so gaps are a normal part of alignment, okay? So even though gaps are a normal part of alignment, BLAST stands for Basic Local Alignment Search Tool. So first of all, it's local alignment. It's trying to find similarities in a sea of other stuff. There might be large sequences that are, very large sequences, genomes or proteins or whatever. We're only trying to find a small similarity. We're not trying to find the whole thing aligned, okay? So that's part of the name, local alignment. So one of the things about BLAST, though, one of the reasons for its existence was because we don't know how similar alignments are, okay? So if we were to do this alignment and say, yes, I did this alignment, is it any good, though? Is this statistically significant? Yes, you found an alignment, but is that alignment any good? Well, in order to determine if something is any good, we had to have a statistical model. Prior to the statistical model, what you would do is you would say, hey, I did a sequence alignment, okay, and I have an alignment in here, the search space. Is that any good? Let's imagine it has a score of 30. Does 30 represent goodness? How would I know if a 30 is good? Well, what you can do is you can take, here's sequence 1 versus sequence 2, and take one of those sequences and randomly rearrange it and shuffle it. Just randomize the sequence. If you do that, okay, and you redo the alignment with a shuffled sequence, you'll find out that you do this over and over and over again, and the alignments generally suck because you've destroyed whatever interesting alignment was there because you scrambled the sequences. I'm going to do this many, many, many times, maybe 1,000 times, and what I end up with is a distribution of scores that has a extreme value distribution look like this. Which means that it's very, when you're maximizing a score, it's hard to get a small score. It's like if you're trying to find the largest apple on a tree, it's hard to get a small apple. So even though if you said all apples on a tree should have a bell-shaped distribution, if you say what's the distribution of the largest apples on a tree, you'll have an extreme value distribution where it's much larger on one side than the other. So you could do this and you could say, look, here we go, I've done this, and this mode value out here is maybe a score of 10. And maybe the average score is 11, but I have a score that's all the way out here at 30. So you can say, look, 30 is not expected at random. If you took random sequences and you shuffled them up, you could get a score of 10. You wouldn't get a score of 30. Okay, so it means 30 is a good score, and I can tell you that because randomly sequenced, if I put a sequences and I just randomized them, it would not get us the score of 30. In fact, that's many z-scores away, meaning it's probably very significant. Given this is not a bell curve, we cannot turn z-scores into actual probabilities. Okay, so, but BLAST, one of the reasons that BLAST exists was to say, look, we're going to put a statistical model on this. I don't want to do all these shuffling experiments. Can't we do a better way? And Carlin Altschul's statistics formalized what BLAST statistics were, and it showed that yes, you get an extreme value distribution. This is what happens at random. This is the expected random behavior of alignment. Okay, but in order to do Carlin Altschul statistics, you have to abide by some rules. One of them, which is like a positive score is possible. Negative score, expected. Each one of these we could have a long conversation about. I'm just going to go through them quickly. The sequences are independent, identically distributed. Sequences are infinitely long. And most importantly, alignments do not contain gaps. Okay, so what? Alignments do not contain gaps. No, Carlin Altschul statistics, because it's based on information theory and a gap character is not an information symbol, not contain gaps. So what the alignment for a very long time has held gaps in it, but we can't have gaps? No. And the first version of BLAST did not allow gaps. And that's one of the reasons why people do things like ungapped alignments, is because in the history of alignment, BLAST, the original version, was very important and had ungapped alignments. That means even if you have a search space, okay, in which the best local alignment looks like this, okay, there's a local alignment in this search space that has a good high score like this. BLAST, the original BLAST version couldn't give you that. You could either have this one and report that as your best alignment, or you could have this one as your best alignment, and you cannot have both. So people then later on developed a gapped version of BLAST that would allow you to have gapped alignments. The technology for making gapped alignments is old. We had that a long time ago. What was new was understanding the statistics of gapped alignments. So this alignment that does not contain gaps was part of the statistical model here. Okay. Later on, they figured out how to do statistics for that. And it's based on the Carlin Altschul equation. The way we get this is like this graph over here, okay, is based on the Carlin Altschul equation, which is this. Carlin Altschul equation tells us how significant this is. If you have a score of 30, okay, the score of 30, instead of plotting out this whole distribution and blah, 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 we can take this 30 and stick it in this equation over here, S. That's where 30 goes. Okay? And this equation tells us how often a score of 30 is supposed to occur in this search space. And that's the statistics of blast. It tells you, oh, that's not supposed to ever happen. Yay, that's good. Okay? The part down here is alignments do not contain gaps. This was a big wrinkle. Okay? We didn't, like, how do you deal with this? Okay? Because alignments do contain gaps. It turns out the way around that is adjusting this lambda value over here. So you can have gaps. Your original question, the reason why you emailed me, had nothing to do exactly with what we're talking about here, but it had to do with this, which we didn't really talk about. But let me tell you what it is. And that is, if you take a look at genomic sequences, okay, they don't look like a random collection of letters. It's like, oh, you know, here's a bunch of nucleotide letters, whatever. That's not really what sequences look like, random collections of letters. What genome sequences actually look more like is this. Yeah. Like this. Which is to say that there's a lot of homopolymeric runs, a lot of low complexity sequence. There's a lot of sequence where once you've seen 5 T's in a row, you're pretty sure it's going to be another T. Once you've seen like 30 T's in a row, what do you think the next letter is going to be if you've seen 30 T's in a row? Well, it's not C, G, and A or do, okay? It's, you're in a homopolymeric run, and there's lots of these kinds of stuff. It's not just homopolymers, it's things like, okay, just shit like this over and over and over and over again in a genome. It looks like this, okay? It doesn't look complex. It looks oftentimes highly predictable. One of the parts of the Carlin-Alschel statistics is that sequences are independent, identically distributed. These are not independent of each other. When you see a T, you're expecting another T. When you see an AC, you're expecting another AC. Biological sequences look like that. And when it comes time to do alignment, what happens is unrelated sequences that have nothing to do with each other, have these kinds of patches in them of low complexity sequence here, like these. Let's just imagine these are all a bunch of A's in a row. That means they form alignments. Strong, high scoring alignments. And every single one of these places has them. Which means when you align sequences to each other, sometimes you get stuff, okay, that is completely unrelated because they're low complexity and for no good reason. So those things are completely unrelated. We don't want to see that. So because of that, one of the things that BLAST does, before it ever runs your sequence, like I want to do a BLAST search, here's your query sequence. What's the first thing that happens with your query sequence? Is to identify the low complexity regions. Oh look, you've got a bunch of ACs over and over and over again. A poly A run over here, whatever. Take those things and mask them out, so you don't see them anymore. What this looks like in the nucleotide sequence is you have something like, yeah, blah, 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 and then it goes like this. And so it does, it turns those into ends, so they don't align anymore. In the protein world, it looks very similar. It looks like this. In the protein world, which is they use the X's for that character instead of N's for that character. But the first step of BLAST is using a complexity filter. They have names like DUST, if you're using nucleotides, or SEG, if you're using proteins.
Can I ask a question real quick? I heard the N's were the sequencing gaps. Is that what that is?
No, this is where there used to be lots of A's, all A's in a row. All the A's, this is what the sequence looked like.
So when you filter out the dust,
it's not, it's just masked.
Mask.
Okay, we turn it into that, okay? So this gets turned into this. And now this part won't align, and it won't cause these problems of alignments all over the place. So the question is, what happens when you align a sequence to itself? Well, if you align a sequence to itself, okay, and it has a region, this is the same sequence. Now, the same sequence aligned to itself should produce a similarity, like a global alignment. It should be 100% identical all the way along the whole thing. However, if there's a place in that sequence, here, it would be also here on this one, that contains a low complexity region, all of that can turn to ends. All of it. So this whole part of the alignment right here is going to look like it didn't match. So you're not going to get 100% identity anymore because the low complexity filter removed it.
Would gap or ungap affect anything? Like if you set the blast to
it can turn
gap.
if this is ungapped blast, it will turn it into two separate alignments. Probably. You'll get one alignment down here and another alignment down here. If you're running ungapped blast. If you run gapped blast, yeah, it probably still makes, it doesn't really make a difference whether you run a gapped blast or ungapped blast, except that no, it probably doesn't make it will make a difference.
Would you
Because
still
they're
get
not
100%?
different, they're not different sizes, right?
Would you still get 100%?
If this whole part is passed out. What? No, you won't get 100% anymore because when you align these two together, this whole part in here doesn't count. You're not aligning A's to A's anymore. You're aligning A's to A's. You don't count as the same letters. Like how many matches I get? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever. Blah 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 blah. Divide by the total. No, they don't count. Depends on your version of blast. There may be some versions of blast where after you mask them out, they don't count those in the denominator. Like which things go in the numerator and which in the denominator? Certainly these are the same out here, but in here, do they count these as, non-matches over the length of the sequence, or they just count this whole thing as it doesn't matter? Which version of blast are you running? Are you running on a website? Or are you running on a command line?
Well, it's not me. It's other people that are running the blast. But I have a question. Are you saying it just really depends on whether you get a what do you call it, a low
complexity?
Yeah, low complexity area.
Yeah, it depends on if you have a low complexity sequence. If you're running if you've got high complexity sequence everywhere, you will have 100% identity. It won't cause the problem. But if you have low complexity sequences, parts of that stuff will not align anymore, even to itself. If you run blast, you just turn the blast filters off, and it will align perfectly. You get turn the filters off, you'll have 100% identity whether you run gapped or ungapped. It doesn't matter. If you align a sequence to itself, it will be 100% identical. If you take the filters off, if you leave the filters on, not necessarily.
So if you leave the filters on, you get 100%. Is that correct?
No. If you keep the filter, the default is the filters are on. Okay.
Dust, right?
And if the filters are on, you will not get 100% identity all the time. It depends on your sequence. Some sequences will be 100% identical, and some will not.
Wow. Okay. That answers a lot, actually.
Okay. What is the YouTube channel for Lucas?
My YouTube channel? Apologetics.
Whoever's YouTube channel. Which YouTube channel are you guys talking about?
Gutsick Gibbon. Are you familiar with her? Her YouTube channel is Gutsick Gibbon.
Guts?
Gutsick Gibbon.
That's something. What's the other one? Let's just put it in chat so I can just copy it.
Gibbon. Gutsick Gibbon. Yeah. But anyway, I really appreciate this. Let me ask you a question on gapped and ungapped. How much difference is there between? Gutsick Gibbon.
What does that mean?
It should be on the very top. Hey, she always appears on top of YouTube. Gutsick.
Oh, this is the other person. I'm Gutsick. Eric, PhD student biology, and a master's degree.
But anyway, yeah, that's her. But I do have a question on gap. Is there a difference, like if you use gap? I mean, how big a percent difference are we talking about on gap and ungap? Are we talking about a huge difference between them?
About gaps, ungap blast?
Yeah, like if you
It
used
depends on the sequence. Depends on what sequences you're working with. Entirely
depends
depends on
on the
what
sequence.
sequences. What
All right,
sequences
so
are you
it could be not that much difference, and in other cases be a lot of difference.
Yes, depends on what you're. Depends on the sequences you're comparing. How different gap to ungap blast would be. It's not. Yeah, it depends on what you're doing. Like, I don't know if
Awesome.
you're working with
I
nucleotides.
actually have your book right here.
Wow, cool.
But I just got it today. But I was just curious about those questions. You've answered a lot today. I really appreciate your time.
What was your what's your interest in all of this?
My
What does she
interest,
do? Yeah, what does she do, and why are you doing research for her or arguing with her or whatever you're doing? What are you doing? Are you arguing?
it's more or less just um, mine's a Christian apologetic YouTube channel, and I'm trying to find out information about certain experiments that she did, and in response to someone else, and it's very complicated. It's all a big mess right now. But
It's
anyway,
about the best.
I do appreciate your help though, very much. Um, thank you. Is there anything else you need to add on any of this?
We could talk for days about this. I mean, teach classes on this. It's
Right.
like
And you
this
do
is
probably teach a class on this, don't you?
I literally teach classes on this kind of stuff all the time. Yeah. Does she know how to use Blast well? Most people
I don't know. I think she had to learn how to use it, so
Yeah,
I'm
most
not.
people most
Go ahead.
people don't know how to use it very well. Most people, it's like let me think about like most people can drive a car, but do they really know how to drive a car? No. Like most people don't really know how to drive a car. They can get to the grocery store, but can they actually drive it nice? No, they don't know how to drive a car. Like most people can operate some piece of machinery, using what the expected controls are, but when things go wrong, do they really know what they're doing? Most people don't. She probably does though.
All right. Wow. Okay. Um, that was the first clip, and that was before he actually discovered. He ended up sending email to Erica after that clip, and he's discussed a few more things with her, and he found out what this whole thing was about. And then he contacted me, asking me about it, and he said he didn't want to get involved, but he ended up getting involved in it anyhow. I didn't drag him into it. I was trying to keep him out of it, but he got really interested in some of the things, and I guess he wanted to try to help everybody involved and fix everything. So he had some discussions with Erica as well. He did spot several mistakes that she made and voiced them to her. He told me that her focusing on gap versus ungap was wrong. You can do a blast study using ungap analysis and things like that. So we had some good discussions. Me and Dr. Korf has had some good discussions. But just to kind of clarify, we also disagree quite a bit because he is an evolutionist and I am a young Earth creationist, so we differ quite extensively, especially about the subject matter of evolution, percent similarity. But his knowledge of blast is superb. It's really good. But at that time, shortly after that, he said that what he said was based on me asking specific questions about blast, which is what I was doing. Because, like I said, I wasn't trying to drag him into this controversy or nothing. He just kind of dragged himself into it, I guess. But he said that now that he knows more about what's going on, he figured out what's the issues and what's the problems areas and things like that. And so he decided he wanted to have a second go at it, a second discussion with me on it, which he does. Now, in the second discussion, it was over E values. I'm not going to show that clip, like I said earlier. He changed his position from there, even though he already knew what was going on, because he thought that Tomkins' E value was a problem. And then he found out that he didn't mask the sequences, and now he thinks that's the issue. But despite everything in connection with some of the biases that he brought to the table, at the same time, Dr. Korf actually helped me understand the situation quite extensively in a way that I'd never even. This is one of the reasons why I contact people. I get discussions. Yes, I might disagree with them about this thing or that thing, but it still helps me think outside the box. when you only have your perception viewing the situation with, it's much more harder to catch things. And when you start conversing with other people, even people that differ with you, it's easier to catch mistakes that you made, maybe get a better handle on the situation, maybe get some extra knowledge you didn't have, and it just and you know, even getting a second perspective that's not your own perspective, and be able to observe things and catch things, and suddenly when he brings stuff up, suddenly I start seeing it, and I was like, wow, yeah, you know, and start and figuring things out. So yes, me and Dr. Corp has quite a bit of disagreements with each other. He knows this. I've voiced this to him before. Some of the differences we have actually discussed even. So we have quite a bit of different disagreements on a number of issues. But his knowledge of Blast was pretty good. At least as far as everything that he's voiced to me. And it makes sense of that. He did kind of flip-flop around a little bit. That was kind of unnerving, because one minute he would say one thing, the next minute he would say something else, and it's enough to give somebody rhetorical whiplash. But besides all that, you know, he still drove my mind in a direction that it needed to go to assess the situation better than it would if I just had my perception of what was going on. And so that's something that I was very thankful for in my discussion with Dr. Korf. But then me and Dr. Korf, like I said, got into another conversation, because I think Dr. Korf really wanted to have another go at it, because he no longer thinks that e-value was a big issue. I mean, somewhat, but not like didn't think it was a really big problem. I think he told me one time that he think that it might create 1% noise, but none of these would really rise to the top, you know, very well. So now he said you don't really want any noise. Now this is e-value is the expected threshold of say, how should I word this? Concerning random background noise. It's weird, because when you do alignment, you can actually create other alignments, especially when it comes to a low complexity area, especially if they're not being filtered out and so forth. And so what you want to do is you want to try to reduce the background noise, and so that's the reason why that people try to give into very low complexity filters. And so he was questioning whether Tomkins's e-value was good enough for what it was intended, and he thought that was the problem. But then he realized, well, that wouldn't be really a major issue. I mean, it's an issue, but it's not significant, because and that sort of thing. So and so he realized that the real problem is the masking or unmasking. And once I started to put two and two together and start to figure some other things out, hammer some of the details, start looking at this information for myself through Blast, and I started figuring out what went wrong, what actually happened. And so this would be interesting. So this is the clip that did it for me and made me realize what was happening. So without further ado, let's dive into my second clip. And let's everyone enter that discussion, that conversation I had with Evolutionist, part 2.
All right. We're going to start here, which is, how do you get a piece of the human genome? And for example, BRCA2, it's a very famous gene, breast cancer. Okay, so this is actually a gene that involved in susceptibility. Okay, so this gene, it's just like this really long gene that's showing a bunch of different forms of the gene, but this is the whole region of the chromosome. So this exists on, so I'll go on here, chromosome 13. If you go to chromosome 13 and you were to go 32,315,086 bases in, you would find the start of this area, and then to 32,001 or whatever. These are the coordinates in the genome. that chromosome. So the place that we're talking about is this little segment right here, which is about 105 kilobases, something like that. Maybe just some shine. Anyhow, so what we can do is we can grab this whole area using, say, export data, and we can grab just this part. So we can say, let's have just this one piece, and you can say, what part of it do you want? We want it in FASTA format, because this is the format that is used when you stick it in the blast. Okay, and we can say, which part of the sequence do we want? Well, we just want the genomic sequence. We don't want all these other parts, just the genomic sequence. Will just be the end-to-end. If we just go backwards, this is going to give us all the sequence all the way across here. Export data. And we can choose on here which one of these things we want. Do we want unmasked DNA? Do we want piece masked DNA? Or do we want hard mask? Unmasked, soft mask, or hard mask? These are our three choices. So if we do something like this and say we want unmasked DNA, let's not do unmasked, let's do soft mask. We go next. How do you want
default soft mask?
There's no default. There's three of them. Blast. You're talking about the website. There's no default, like necessarily. Like you have to provide your own sequences. But we can get it anyway. But soft, I'll show you what soft looks like. We go to soft next, and then we can get it in different ways. We'll just get it in the raw text format.
This might be what Erica was talking about when she said that she got she downloaded no mask. That's probably what she was referring to.
This is soft mask.
Well, I'm saying that's what she was referring to on the choices. I mean.
Okay. All right. So let me show you now. Instead of us having to click, it'll be like a cooking show. I'll jump over to this window over here, where I have that same sequence here, and I have it hard, soft, and unmasked. So if you get it unmasked, this is the unmasked. At the beginning, just so we'd be organized about it. This is unmasked, and I'll show you what soft masks look like. I'm going to move these cursors off here, with this colored part off here. You can see that there's no difference between these. It's just capital letters or lowercase letters. And if we go to hard masking, watch this. That's what hard masking is. Hard, soft, unmasked. Unmasked, all the letters are capitals. Soft masking, the things that are repetitive elements of various kinds, sometimes low complexity DNA, be lowercase, and then hard masking, they turn to N's. So you can just look at, you see with your eyes, it's like, oh, all that stuff that's N, now it's all lowercase. N's, lowercase. N's, lowercase, nothing. So those are the three different versions of type of sequence that you could get. BRCA2 is a very common, common gene. Lots of people, it's a very famous gene. Here's another famous gene. Myosin heavy chain 1. So, like actin and myosin are big parts of your muscle that makes up your muscle. And here we have hard, soft, and unmasked. You can see here these tiny regions of just a bunch of ends in here that you can focus on. Let's take a look what's underneath those. Soft masking. It's a bunch of A's in a row, or a bunch of T's in a row, or an AC, AC, AC repeat. These are known as low complexity regions. It's something that's happening over and over again. It's not a complex repeat, it's a low complexity repeat. And so you can see those sometimes it looks like that. So those are the sequences that we're going to use. They're not huge.
Right. I would like to do the sequence unmasked, or with no mask, So that
we're going to do it a couple
of blast.
Yeah, we're going to do it a couple different ways.
Yeah, that way, whatever we do in blast, we can be able to test different settings.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're going to do. We're going to use a couple of different settings. All right, so now we're going to go change our sharing to, I'm going to go back to that other, here, we're going to go to blast instead. All right, we'll go to blast. And we're going to do nucleotide blast. And the way we're going to do this is we're actually going to align just two sequences, because if we want to align things, the whole genome is align, that's going to be huge. We want to see what happens if we just align two sequences to each other. So just align two sequences to each other. So in here, what?
Well, so far, other than where you got your sequence from, I usually just type it in Google. That's
Okay.
what I did on the thing whenever I
Good.
went to
Excellent. Perfect. All right. So we're going to go and we're going to grab bracket 2, and we're going to put that, and you want to do the unmasked, right? So we're going to grab all of that and put it into here. That's unmasked. We'll align it to
That's
itself.
the entire gene.
It's not, it's the whole thing. It's gigantic.
Will
Yeah,
my
it's
computer be able
actually-
to do that? And
No, this is all being done by, not by your computer. This is being done on, this is being done by somebody else's computer. This is unmasked, whatever. Let's stretch this out. Can I not stretch it this direction? No, I don't want to stretch it out. But yeah, that's what this is. Both of them, it's the whole thing. Unmasked. Okay. Now we want to choose our blast algorithm and our alignment parameters.
do we choose somewhat similar blast in? Because I know that's what Tomkins use.
That's it?
Whatever,
So
yeah. Whatever
So
you want to compare two different sequences.
That's what we're going to do right here.
Is it the same sequence we're comparing?
Yep, exactly the same thing. That's the same thing. DNA from unmasked, chromosome 13, blah, 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 13, blah, blah, blah. Yep, exactly the same thing. We can set these different values. I'll show you what they mean and what they don't mean. We can change different match and mismatch scores. This is +2, -3.
You said that that's a bit arbitrary and a bit not arbitrary.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. I'm going to use +1, -1 for our match and mismatch. And we're going to use gaps. We're going to get 2 and 2. Like this. And then we're going to say, we're not going to use low complexity filters. We're not going to do any of this kind of stuff. And
Let me ask you a question real quick before we blast that. The gap cost. What does that mean? The existence and extension. What's that referring to? I know there's like a cost, per match and mismatch, but I think the mismatch one is up there. So what exactly is that?
What is gap cost extension? Yeah. I'll show it to you. Once we see the alignments, I'll show it to you.
Okay.
And I'll show you exactly how that fits.
Does it matter which one you go to?
Yeah, these definitely affect that. It definitely affects how things.
How do you know which one to do?
It depends on what you think the alignment is, like what kind of alignments you're supposed to get. Like, if you're looking for things that are nearly identical, you would want to have really highly penalized gap. You want to do something like this. This would make sure that almost all the alignments you see will be really close to each other, really similar. Because sometimes people know ahead of time they're looking for things that are really similar, so you use the parameters that find things that are really similar. We're going to go for things that are really dissimilar.
Yes, gap open 3 and gap extend 3 on his parameters. What does that mean? Is that what you're talking about here?
Yeah. We'll use 2 and 2.
Okay.
We'll do something like this. We can do it a lot of different ways. Okay, and then we're going to do ethics. And because these are relatively small sequences, it's only going to take a second.
But
it's already done.
All right. Now, one of the things I want to test is the E value. I know you can filter the E value there. Would you recommend doing that or what?
No, we're not going to do it right now. I'll show you later. All right, so if you get to here and you just look at this, we'll say, oh, it's 100% identical. So
it's unmasked.
You have to click on all lines of it. You have to click on that part. And because what it's going to show is, yes, there's this, oh God.
Okay.
The alignment is 100% identical. 84,000 bases in a row. That's just exactly the same for 84,000.
Do you expect that for being unmasked? For it to be 100%?
That part, yes, but there's more than one alignment. There's that alignment.
It looks 100%.
Get all the mismatches, gaps, mismatches. You see that? It's 75%. And if you go to the next match after that, all these other alignments are not 100%.
What are you talking about?
You don't
I'm
see
trying to
this?
see what you're saying. Yeah, it said 100% on the thing. I put in identity.
88%. Do you see this? You see
On the
this?
percent identity?
Wait a minute. Are you not seeing my screen?
Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out how the alignments.
Saying, what do you see me pointing at right now?
Hey, go.
What does it say? I don't know if you can see.
88%. But how's that possible? Because it was 100%, and then you went to these other screens.
Because there's more than one alignment.
So what kind of alignment are we supposed to be looking at?
This is the one that's 100%.
The one. Okay.
The next one after that in the report is 75% identical. This is the part I want to explain to you on.
So it depends on where you're looking at in the gene. In the alignment.
In a diagram. I want to show you in a diagram because I don't think you I tried to explain this before. I don't think you understood it. So I want to try and do it again.
Okay. There's more than one way to look at it on blast, I know.
No. So if you align to a sequence to itself, there is something we call the major diagonal, which is every letter aligned to every other letter. So for example, if this is A, C, G, and T, this is also A, C, G, and T. They match up with each other. And it goes all the way down here, and they think we're looking for 84,000 bases. That's what all of this is up here. It's 84,000 bases of 100% identical. All of the sequence and all of the sequence will align to itself with 100% identical.
I think I know what you're talking about. You're saying that not all of the matches are aligned.
No, but let me finish. But there's also a sequence over here. Let's imagine that's not ACGT, it's AGGT. And so that produces an alignment right here. And that alignment is not 100% identical, it's 75%. That A matches that A, that C is aligned with this G, and that's a mismatch. That G is together and that T. So this alignment over here, 75%, 100%. And there's lots of other alignments all over the place that are not this one. This alignment right here is 100% identical. But when you align a sequence to itself, it doesn't just report one alignment, it produces many different alignments if there's other ones that are significant. BLAST finds multiple local similarities, not just one. This is one of the extra ones.
Now I'm even more confused though, because
I tried to tell you about this before.
Yeah,
let me this is what neither Erika nor Tomkins is doing. Let me show you something else though. Okay, so one of the things that you can do is you could say, but I only want to see one alignment per sequence. Just show me one alignment per sequence. Now, if you do that, then you would just get this one. Just show me the one best alignment per sequence. You would get this one. You wouldn't see this one. This one. However, if when you're searching a sequence, you search against multiple different sequences, like when you do a search, it's like, I'm going to take this one sequence and search the whole genome. Take this other sequence and search the whole genome. You do that over and over again. You not only get the alignment to yourself, you will compare yourself to a completely different sequence, and you might also find similarities to a completely different sequence. And that's what we're going to do next. Instead of using here, BRCA2.
How do you only get that 100% alignment without getting those other alignments? Or is that not possible?
It is possible, but some people would call that cherry picking. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take BRCA2 and compare it against myosin heavy chain 1, which is on a completely different chromosome with completely different coordinates, and it's in a completely different place. A completely 100% different sequence. These two sequences should have nothing in common. They're nowhere near each other. Okay, they're just totally different chapters of the human genome. And we're going to see what it looks like.
Let me ask you a question. What are those boxes that are next to those big boxes, those small ones here?
Which ones?
Go right next to it. It says subject, range, or like from.
These ones?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you only wanted to say do the first 10 bases, you can just put in 1 to 10.
Oh, okay. So it just kind of limits it to a specific area.
Yeah. Why is this area? Let me see. Why is this not reloading? Okay, I have to just reload it. Hold a second. So I'm gonna go here, bracket 2, put that in here, and then minus MH1. And let's just make sure that they actually look like that. So we're gonna scroll to the top, minus MH1, bracket 2, and then alignment parameters. I think it remembers the same ones that we did before. Okay, we'll do this again. Now these two sequences are completely dissimilar from each other. So over here, we wouldn't expect any major diagonal, because it's not the same sequence being aligned, it's something completely different. We should expect they don't align at all because they're completely 100% unrelated to each other. However, if we go down to alignments, you will see that there's lots of alignments. And they're all 75, 80% identical to each other.
Is this the result of using a mask or not?
This is because you're using unmasked sequence. What's happening here is these are unmasked sequences, and what you're unmasking. If we use masked sequence in here, we wouldn't get this. And what we end up aligning to, we can look at all the way back here. If we were to go into the genome browser and look at the places where it's aligning, if we were to zoom in on the places that we're aligning, we would actually see that all the places that it's aligning are repetitive elements. This is like comparing like two magazines, like Car and Driver and Cosmopolitan, and noting that they have the same advertisements in both of them. The article contents aren't the same, but there's like advertisements in both of them. They're both trying to sell you beer.
I'm thinking I'm
So
understanding.
what we're getting here, the similarities that we're finding, are not interesting similarities. Yeah, this is the similarity. Yeah, this is the similarity of the thing to itself. These are extra similarities that nobody cares about.
Let me get this straight.
Like, nobody wants to compare these things. You're comparing repetitive elements to each other.
If I'm so when Erica is using her method, which is mask, she's seeing the best, the only one that one alignment. That's why it's always 100%. But then when she uses Tomkins' method, which also is mask.
No, she's not. No, she doesn't. I don't think Erika'S method does that either. Erica also finds these.
She claims she gets.
Erika'S also finding some of these.
Or do you think she's cherry picking, like you mentioned a minute ago? It's like she's looking at one specific alignment from that particular study.
I think that she's removed most of these, but there's probably still some that are coming through. I'm not sure. I have to look at her data. But forget about Erica, forget about Tomkins, forget about everybody.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand this.
We can understand. Yeah, this is what happens when you align a sequence to itself that has lots of repeats in it. That's what you get. This is what repetitive DNA. There's repetitive DNA all over the human genome. And so when you align, you find similarities. If you pick a big enough chunk, if you pick 100 base pairs, no. But if you pick a big enough chunk of it, you will find similarities to other places, just randomly, all over the place. So that's why nobody uses unmasked when they do anything. Unmasked is a terrible idea. Why don't we switch this to masked and see what happens? Want to see what happens with masked?
Yes.
Completely different. Alright, so we'll go and take this one. I'll go up to here, we'll go Breca. Oh, it's actually, you can see the lowercase because it's not consonant. You can see the parts.
All you have to do is change it on the settings of blast. Didn't we just change the blast settings to
no, because I didn't. Because I'm not using the sequences from blast. I put my own sequences in. I grabbed them myself because I don't want to do a giant search against the whole genome. I just want to use part of it. We could have actually done. We could have done this. We could have said, "Give me the human genome," and use a subrange in here and use these coordinates. Could have done that too. Move in some of that. All right, so here we are. These two things. Now we have hard masking. Is this one hard mask? Oh no, this one we had soft. We wanted hard on both, right? Hard masking on both of them. Now we have a bunch of ends. And then. Okay, now we can do it. Oh my god, it's annoying. It's for whatever reason. It doesn't, whenever I go back, it doesn't give me the buttons again. It's going to show me how the sequence at the top. Hard. I don't know which one. Hard. Like this. Same alignment parameters. Let's just make sure that we use the same alignment parameters. Like that. This again shouldn't take more than a second. Nothing found.
Is that possible?
Because the only similarities were masked sequences, or I mean, were repetitive elements. Because this gene, MI8 major, I mean, bias and heavy chain doesn't look like. These two sequences are completely different from each other. Bias and heavy chain and BRCA2 were completely different from each other, except for the repetitive elements that are in common that nobody cares about. If you use unmasked sequences, you end up comparing those things.
Wouldn't that still be genetic information you'd want to know? Because there'd be differences in similarity.
If you start, yeah, I mean, if you're interested, there are people who are interested in repetitive elements. I think they're pretty cool. But if you do that, then when you compare any two people, they're also going to be like 80% identical. You're going to get weird results if you start doing that.
So self against
if you start
self, it's
comparing
kind of a
one
weird,
part of a genome to another.
It's kind of a weird control.
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense. No, well, it is, but it isn't, because if you're producing some kind of method that says, like the idea, right, was like, I'm going to take a human and do want to compare it to a chimp and see how similar they are, and you get some number over here. But do you want to try this now? Do you want?
Yes, actually.
I want to be able to know what I'm doing if I.
Yeah. I can see that. I think you're a person who likes to know, like, doesn't want to just be told how things work. You want to see how they work at first hand. That's fine. All right, so go grab some sequences from somewhere.
I'm gonna share screen.
Yeah, go for it.
It may. Okay, you got it where we can share the screen. Okay, good. All right. I'm gonna go where you mentioned.
And go to the first place. There it is. Go. Okay, under species, select human. You can do that too, but you can just go to the little drop down box. That's fine. Now search for. You can do whatever. I don't care what you do. There's that one. You can like type in like any old gene name will do. Like they show one right there. PPP2RTA, or you can use BRCA2, BRCA2.
Let's use
the
this
same one.
Okay, on the screen, it'll be easier. Right here.
Okay, click that.
It's loading.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Right here.
So scroll. Let's look like there. It looks like it's going to be about 100. That's pretty good. All right. Go to export data on the left. The link at the very far left. Just leave it right where the page is. Go down farther. Down.
There.
Yes. Export data. Yep. And deselect all of those extra types of sequence. We only want the genomic sequence. So just click that one, and then yep, exactly. Unmasked is fine.
Unmasked, okay, and
click on next.
This one.
Yep. And click on text. Okay, there it is. Save that to your computer.
What I need to do? Do I need to copy this whole thing, or?
Yeah, you can save it. You can right click and type, and it'll bring up a menu for save. Right click and then save. Is it? When you right click, just the whole window. Commit Control S or something for saving. Don't select it. Don't do that. No, it's too big.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. No, just use the Control S for save. Control S. Yeah, and then you can save it to some place like your desktop or someplace. Or you put it in your downloads. That's fine. It's in downloads now. I don't think you really want to open it. But
don't want to open it? Oh, I'm sorry, I opened it.
You can. That's all right. It's okay. But what are you going to open it in? Don't open it. It's really big. You can see in your browser right there. There it is. You need to open. It's already open. Now go to Blast.
I'll go Blast.
Yeah. I put in the Blast. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to align two sequences. And you're going to paste it. You're going to paste it into there. So you need to open up the. Oh, you can say Choose File. There's a little button there. You don't have to copy here. It says Choose File. Choose File, Downloads. Change, there you go. Okay, same thing for the other one. Choose file. Jump down to the bottom. Yeah. It's up there at the top. Good. All right.
It doesn't come in the boxes though. It just comes on there as a file, doesn't it?
Yeah. All right. So now we have to choose our alignment parameters. Let's change that to somewhat similar sequences. And all we need to really do on this one is, you can leave all that stuff there. Just turn off the low complexity filter. And then mask for lookup table. There's no masking anyway, so it doesn't really matter if you click that off there. It won't matter either way. We can do it this way. It's slightly different parameters. Let's try it.
Do it unmasked.
Yeah, it's unmasked.
Okay. And what about mismatches, extensions?
Let's try these as they are now. We can change them later on too.
All right. Should I go ahead and blast it?
Yeah. For the experiment that we're doing right now, it doesn't really matter what the alignment is because those are big, giant pieces that are going to align no matter what. So we're going to get the main diagonal that's going to align really well, 100% over 81,000 bases.
See, that's what I was talking about. It looks like it's 100%.
Yeah. Click alignments, though. Click alignment. There you go. Now, stop. We need to go to the next alignment. Next match. See that button? The blue thing in the middle of your screen?
All right, here, next
right
match.
Yeah. And now scroll down. Scroll up a little bit now. You'll see the previous one. Scroll up. That right there is 100% identical. That's the tail end of that big, long alignment. 100% identical over 80,000 bases. Scrolling to the next part, there it is, 89%.
Let me ask you a question, though. If the 100% one, even with mask, still winds up at the top, wouldn't he use that as the best alignment?
Yes, you would. But when you start to compare to the whole chromosome and don't pair them up individual regions, then you end up comparing unrelated areas to each other. That's what I was trying to show you earlier, is that when you compare it to a different sequence, you still get all of these kinds of alignments, but you're now comparing completely unrelated places of the genome. So if you want to get the 100%, you have to make sure that you're only aligning the parts that you mean to align and not aligning stuff you don't mean to align. This is the difficulty with BLAST, is because it provides multiple different alignments. It's not saying, don't show me anything else that matches this one spot.
It really is going to come down to how he's doing the study.
Yes.
Rather than...
And if you include those extra alignments down there at the bottom, if your alignment method ends up aligning repetitive elements, then you will get a different answer. You will not get 100% identity, even if you compare to yourself.
If other matches are considered.
Yeah, these are the extra matches. And also, if you see where those extra matches come from, this is the other thing, is like you have to not just make, coordinates of where the matches are and how long they are. If you look at the actual, what is the thing that's matching, and look at the alignment coordinates in the sequence, you would find out that they're actually repetitive elements. Stuff that's all over the genome that everybody knows is vaguely similar to each other and isn't very interesting. I mean, it's interesting to people who want to study repetitive elements, but it's not people who are interested in studying the important parts of genomes, the more important parts. Yeah.
The more and more I looked at this, I could see why Erica got less than 100%, but it makes less and less sense to use it as a control, because Tomkins is obviously not doing a self-to-self analysis here. He's doing a comparison between two different organisms.
I know, but the proper control for that is the self-to-self. Because if you do a comparison, let's say, I'm going to compare you to me, and I get a number that's like, oh, we're 10 apart from each other. If you compared yourself and you got the same number, you would be saying, God, then we're the same person. If I compare myself to myself, it should be 0. But if I compare myself to myself and I get 10, that's meaningless. Yeah, that's what she's trying to show. She's trying to show that when he used his methods, that it wouldn't even give you... I don't understand why you don't, what's the problem with, she actually did the right control for this. Self-to-self is the right control. Because it doesn't...
How many geneticists do a self-to-self test like this? On any method that they do?
Oh, I think they would all do that to make sure that their method was working.
Yeah,
That would
but
be
I've never heard of any of them. I mean,
well, like,
if they do it, they don't report it.
yeah, because it's a control that wasn't really worth reporting. Like that was
But why would it was reporting it?
because it's the stuff you do in the background that's sort of like before you. There's a lot of stuff that you do that you don't like necessarily talk about because it's not
In
interested in
peer
science.
review,
It's just sort of
don't-
like
Of course, Dr. Korf did get several problems with. He's getting a lot of stuff about Tomkins parameters from Erica, rather than actually seeing it in his papers. He told me later that he's read the papers, but he kept making lots and lots of mistakes. That just makes me wonder either he hasn't really read all his papers, or he's only read some of his papers, or certain type, or he's or it's very, very little content, or he didn't understand what study that Tomkins was doing at the time. For example, he kept going on about e-value 10 and different ranges. And the only paper that, the only study that Tomkins had where he used several different e-values was in his 2011 paper, which we're going to be looking at here in a little bit. But usually, in most cases, he used the e-value of 0.01 in most of his papers, with the exception of his 2011 paper, which he does use 0.01 as well, but he also, that's the only paper that I've seen that he uses e-value of 10. So I don't know what's going on there, why he kept assuming that he's using an e-value of 10 and stuff like that. Normally he didn't. He tested 5 different e-values in 2011 paper, along with 3 word sizes and both masking and unmasking in that paper. So that's the reason why we're going to be going over it today and discussing that a little bit. But in any given case, he did use originally Korf thought the problem was e-value. Now he thinks it's masking. Essentially, Dr. Korf thought that Tomkins basically is comparing different portions of the genome. I don't think Dr. Korf actually seen Dr. Tomkins' data exactly. I think most of his information is coming third party. He's making too many mistakes on what Tomkins actually did. Tomkins took the best alignment, which would have been actually the one at the top, the actual alignment. So he wasn't actually comparing irrelevant parts of the genome. He was comparing he was taking the top result. He was taking the best alignment, and that was what he was taking. He was not taking any of those other alignments. He wasn't comparing, repetitive sequence to repetitive sequences or anything like that. Now, with Erica, when she did her self-to-self analysis, in a little bit we're going to be actually going through all this, she actually does it at random. She does it by random vector. I think Dr. Korf thought that Tomkins did it that way, but he didn't actually do it that way. He's taking specific sequences, whether we're dealing with contigs, data sets, whatever the case may be. He's taking specific sequences. Okay, now he's taking this from a pool of data. Now he does take that randomly, like, okay, I'm going to take this sequence. He's not choosing the sequence exactly. He's just kind of taking he randomly chose the sequences, so that way that he wasn't introducing bias in that. But once he has the sequences, contigs, data sets, whatever we're talking about here, once he has those sequences, he then blasts them against the human genome. And that's essentially what he's doing. And then he gets a list of alignments. And of course, he's going to get a lot of spurious alignments because in a little bit you're going to see what's going on here. But all the repetitive stuff that he's masked out are now become extra alignments. But he'll still get 100% with the best alignment. Mask or unmask, he'll still get 100% if you use self-identity. And so Dr. Korf said if he replicates Tomkins' method exactly, he would get less than 100%. That's not correctly. I don't think he understands that Dr. Tomkins actually used best alignment. Because of that, he actually is comparing relevant portions of the genome. All right. So we're going to jump into that. But before we do, I want to show some clips from Erika'S videos on this so you can see what Erica does with the self-to-self analysis. Before we move further, we need to show those clips. All right. let's dive into Erika'S arguments here on self to self.
But I really wanted to put the final nail in the coffin. So when I saw this number, I thought to myself, well, if two human populations aren't going to show up as similar to one another or nearly identical to one another, what would happen if I compared a human to a human, the identical two reference genomes, one reference genome to itself? And at this point, I'd wasted well over a month of time doing all of these comparisons, because I also included his 2018 methods, which we'll get to in a moment. I was running all of these comparisons. It was taking forever. It was like I was maybe getting through a genome a day, but then I had to run it twice, or 3 times, excuse me, for all 3 forms of methods, the good, 2013, and 2018. So I was pretty exhausted. So I was like, okay, I'm going to run one chromosome, and I'm only going to run 100 sequences. That's it. First, I tested it with the good method. I used chromosome 21 because it's the smallest chromosome, and I ran chromosome 21 against itself using conventional means, and of course, as I should have, I got a 100% similarity. Then I ran the same thing with Tomkins' method, and here's what I got. 83.83% similar to itself. You are done, Tomkins. This method, it's through. It's finished. Throw the towel in. Oh, and by the way, this was the same issue back with the 2011 paper from earlier. Dozens and dozens of hours wasted just to show that your method is bogus.
Okay, now we're going to see a clip from Erika'S response to my Tomkins interview, where she also does a self-to-self analysis. Let's review it.
Okay, so here's our system, right? We're gonna change directories to get to the right place, change directory document, change directory genomes. Okay, so now I initiate how I actually run this. Generate random win. This is the executable or whatever that I utilize to basically what's the word I'm looking for? It's like streamline. It streamlines the process. My husband made it. He's a computer programmer, and he was basically like, okay, well, doing it this way, we can basically kind of package it into a single executable, so that you don't have to have different code in a different place that you have to execute at different times to create the random sequences and then actually do the alignment. And you don't have to like narrow it down by chromosome. You can download full genomes and do it that way. So here's Dogful. Dogful 1, this is a downloadable Canis familiaris. It's just the dog. It's a downloaded dog genome. And directly underneath it is Dogful B, a copy of that dog. This is the same dog. It's the same reference genome. It's the same individual. So I'll click enter for dog 1, and we'll compare it to dog 2 here. Okay, so there's a lot of different variants. That's for like a top level. I believe this is top level download, so it has a lot of different variants. But this is the critical portion down here. Here's our chromosomes. So we're going to compare chromosome 1 to chromosome 1. And here's what we're going to do. 100 sequences. 100 sequences. 100 sequences. Enter. And we're going to use the good method. So it's going to take a couple of seconds because this is like a super fast way of, it's like a pretty efficient way of running. And there you go. Max target sequence 1, dog to dog, chromosome 1 to chromosome 1, the same sequence, 100% similarity. Good to go. So there we go. So now let's try Jeff's method. Generate random win. Same thing, dog to dog. We use chromosome 1. We'll generate 100 sequences, and Blast is like the program that he's generated here, like the code that he wrote, the script, is smart enough to know that since we've just done 100 random sequences, it's going to use the same previous ones. So see, it knows we don't need to make them. And this time we're going to use Tomkins 2013. So there you can see, it's his exact methods minus the number of threads because my computer is weaker. E-value 10, word size 11, max target sequence 1, dust no, soft masking false, and ungapped. Okay, so it takes a little longer to run Tomkins' method because he doesn't have a very critical parameter in there. And while that's running, I'm going to show you what that parameter is using Excel here. So remember that with good, that returned 100% similarity in max target sequence 1 here. What we did is we had this little parameter here, max HSPS 1. right? Max HSPS1. Tomkins' 2013 methods, they don't have that. And my understanding of how BLAST works is that's what's making sure that we're only returning like the best matches instead of like any willy-nilly partial 10 base pair match. And that's what drags his percent similarity down, despite the fact that he's using ungapped, or that's what pulls the similarity down further with ungapped, even when you're comparing something to itself. So the ungapped is the problem. The fact that he's missing this, I guess, critical parameter here makes the problem worse. Really, it's mostly ungapped. And there you go. There's your percent similarity for Tomkins' 2013 methods. 89.1% weighted similarity of that dog's chromosome to itself. You don't need to compare the whole chromosome here, Apologetics 101. The fact that he can't return an identical similarity for the same 100 base pairs to, like, in one to the same organism, right, that it can't find that 100% identity, means the methods are flawed. And that's the long and short of it, you guys. That's why Tomkins' methods don't work.
All right. There were several things there to respond to, but I'll get to that in a second. Before I get to the main event concerning the way in which she did it, I want to point out some things. She did self-to-self with his 2011 paper and with his 2013 paper. What struck me kind of strange is why in the world is she doing self-to-self analysis with this 2013 paper, or even challenging the method on the 2013 paper? If you guys didn't know what paper, a specific study that Tomkins did in 2013, let me show you which one that is. All right, we're here in this is his 2013 paper right here. This is the one in which he actually had a bug in the algorithm. Okay, the 70% one, the one where he got 70% similar. This right here, it wouldn't matter whether his methods were good or bad or whatever the case may be, because if you look at this paper, this is the one in which he actually got a bug in the algorithm that they had to fix up. He didn't know about the bug at the time, and they actually printed I call a retraction. I would call it a retraction. In 2015, he let me show that paper real quick. All right. This is a paper he wrote in 2015. It's documented anomaly in recent versions of the BLAST-N algorithm and a complete reanalysis of chimpanzee and human genome-wide DNA similarity using Nightmare and LAST-C. So he had to reevaluate it. He had to retract the original number because of the fact that it actually had issues with the algorithm. And this was pointed out later on by a computer programmer by the name of Glenn Williamson, who's better known on YouTube as Ruhif, and he's the one who actually came up with, or actually pointed this out to them, and then they started investigating it, and they turned out to find out that that was the case. And so basically, Tom's like, oops, there was a mistake in the algorithm, and so he went and he worked with NCBI to try to fix the problem and stuff like that. And so that's what they did. And then they decided to kind of redo the experiment using other algorithms and that sort of thing. The local installation may be omitting significant levels of query sequences in large-scale genomic searches. This claim potentially affects the results of past research done by this author, particularly in relation to human-chimp DNA similarity. Therefore, 6 different versions of BLAST-N algorithm, he names them, were tested using chimpanzee genome sequence queried against human sequence sets of 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, and 100,000 sequences of randomly obtained 300 base fragments derived from 3 different chimpanzee chromosomes. Provided 3 experimental replications, surprisingly only BLAST-N versions 2.2, 2.25, return hits for nearly all query sequences. Every later version of the algorithm omitted significant levels of query sequences, with the problem significantly increasing with progressive algorithm releases. But anyway, this was basically a retraction of his 70% paper. So I don't understand why she harks on the 2013 paper or did the self-to-self. Why not do a self-to-self analysis with 2018 paper? That's his most recent study. That's the one I don't understand why she didn't do a self-to-self analysis of that paper, because that would have been the more relevant paper to do a self-to-self analysis. She might have chose that because of the lack of max HSPS1 parameter. By the way, although it's better to use that, it's not exactly what she said. It doesn't make it less or anything like that. That parameter wouldn't have done that. That would just limit your searches. The top result, the best alignment, would have still been the same. You would have still gotten 100% regardless if you're using best alignment. Okay, so essentially, Tomkins is using best alignment, right? He's taking a specific sequence and he's blasting against a human genome. And he's getting a series of searches, series of hits, but he's not just taking any hits. He's taking the top hit. He's taking the top sequence or the top alignment, because that top alignment is the best alignment. And I actually looked this up. On default, the BLAST algorithm automatically gives you the best alignment first on top. So that would be true regardless whether you use max HSPS1 or not. He usually does, by the way, use that parameter. It's used on his other studies as well. So he usually uses that parameter, but for some reason he didn't use that parameter for his 2013 paper. I don't know why. He usually uses it. I think it would have been better if he uses it, but it's not crucial. You would still get 100% back regardless. If done correctly. Here's the thing. Erika did her... This is what I discovered. Erika did her self-to-self by throwing up random sequences. She literally searched for random sequences and then compared the same random sequences against itself. Okay, Tomkins' method was unmasked. What that means is he didn't use dusting. That's the repetitive elements. And this, what happens is when you don't mask the repetitive elements, all those repetitive elements gets thrown into all the because there's a lot of repetitive elements there. Gets thrown in the other alignments, and these alignments are not 100%. These are spurious alignments. We're about to look into this as well, and you're going to see exactly what's going on here. But Tomkins, of course, because of the way Tomkins did it, he was able to choose the best alignment. Now, if Tomkins made a mistake here, the biggest mistake would probably be he didn't really make a big deal out of him choosing the best alignment in his papers. I don't know. I can't remember if he mentions it at all or not. I know he mentions it in interviews a lot, and I know I've asked him specifically about this, and he said yes. Carter also referenced it in his video that he's using the best alignment. He's using the highest alignment because that's what he wants. He wants the best alignment. Tomkins did. So I think Carter also mentions it too in his video about about Tomkins taking the best alignment. I asked Tomkins in an email if he used best alignment. All right, and he affirmed this. And I'm going to show my email. I'm gonna blur out the personal information, emails, phone numbers, things like that. And I don't have to move it around this time, so I don't have to try to track my blurring. So that's one of the things that got me a lot of problems when I was trying to do this in editing, trying to track all those blur effects that I was using. And so this time around, I can keep the blur where it is. And I just two emails that I wanted to show you, mine to him and his confirmation of it. And his confirmation is really short and nothing bad or anything like that. I just wanted to be able to show you my question. My question was very specific, and he affirmed that this is what he did. All right. And full disclosure, I got his permission to show this email. I told him I'd be blurring it. He said that'd be fine. He was okay with it. So I do have his permission to show this email. But like I said, on his part, it was just mostly just confirmation. But my question was very specific and very precise. So you'll see that he does do this. Like I said, Carter also mentions it, that he does this. And me and Carter's had lots of back and forth on this as well, and discussing this, and I think he might have referenced it in his papers. He does in his interview. In his interviews, he makes it very clear that he is taking the best alignment. He's taking the best alignment of all the search results, so he's using the best alignment, and he's not trying to take all these spurious alignments and so forth. I'm going to go to my email, and I am going to show you what he said in email conversation. All right, we're here. Okay, this is my question to him. It's very specific. I sent him an email saying, when you did your blast searches, other alignments that were more spurious came with it. Is my understanding correct that you use the best possible alignment for each contig in your data? The alignment at the very top of the blast search is what I put in parentheses. That's the best alignment. Since you were looking for the best possible match, you'd be using the top results. This was my understanding. I just want to make sure my understanding was correct. All right. And this is what he said. Yes, that's correct. That's what he did. He used the best alignment. Now this is going to be very important here in a little bit. Yes, very important indeed, because we're fixing to go to blast, and we're fixing to do some blast searches as well. So, but essentially, here's what the issue is. I don't think that Erica actually replicated Tomkins's method. I don't think he replicated it in general, but with self-to-self it's especially true. Because she didn't, start with, she doesn't take best alignment. I'm going to come back to this in a second, but I do want to talk about the 2013 and 2011 papers that she also did self-to-self alignment on terms of the parameters. Now, she said she was focused. She told me in an email that her focus on the methodology was on the parameters. She doesn't actually replicate the entire method. She makes a big deal about it in the email, like she doesn't have to replicate the entire study. And I'm like, yes, I agree. You don't have to replicate the entire study. You could replicate a small portion of the study in order to replicate the method, and that's fine. You know, you don't have to evaluate 18,000 contigs or 101 data sets or anything like that Tomkins did. You could do it on a much smaller scale the way Carter did, and that's fine. You could do it that way. But with the method, you do have to replicate the entire method, because the method is how he came up with the results. And you're saying, I question and challenge those results, and therefore I'm going to challenge his method. It does not do no good to only sit there and replicate part of his method to try to show flaws in that method, and not replicate others, because that others could affect the result ultimately when it's combined with all of the methodology. And of course, Erica talks about Tomkins's method like it's a single method. It's actually multiple methods. It depends on what study he was doing. Each paper represents a different study that he's doing, because you obviously ain't going to be doing the same exact study in every paper, because I mean that'd be very boring if you're just repeating yourself over and over and over again. So he's doing a separate study in each time he does a paper, and each paper has its own method. Now, 2011 paper is interesting because he doesn't have just one method. He has several methods that's being used in there. He's testing out various parameters to see, the kinds of results that could be affected by these parameters. And this is one of his earlier papers too. His 2011 paper involves the 40,000 sequences that he analyzed. Okay, and he uses two different experiments. He's actually got two different experiments going on here. One in which he uses masking and one he uses unmasking. All right. In in the course of those 2 experiments, he's also testing 5 different, see my hand right here, 5 different e-values. And he's testing 3 word sizes. He's trying to see, mixing them up and testing different e-values and with different word sizes, 3 different word sizes, and he's trying to see the results. And he gets different results depending on what parameters he was using, whether he was using mask or unmask, etc., etc., etc. And so when Erika says she replicated his 2011 paper, what exactly did she put in for the parameters? Because if his 2011 paper, let's go to his 2011 paper, and I'll show it to you. All right, we're here at his 2011 paper. You can see this is 2011. Right, this is by Dr. Jeffrey Tomkins, genome-wide DNA alignment similarity identity for 40,000 chimpanzee DNA sequences queried against human genome is 86 to 89%. All right, and in this thing, he does 2 different experiments. It says to provide fresh and less biased global set of analysis, large-scale comparative DNA sequences alignments between chimpanzee and human genomes were performed with the BLAST-N algorithm. One group of experiments, one group of experiments was conducted with query and low complexity sequence masking enabled, while the second set had masking parameters disabled. Okay, so he's using 2 different experiments. Now, in those 2 experiments, he then goes further and says each group of sub-experiments tested 15 combinations of 3 different word sizes, 7, 11, and 15, and 5 different e-values, 1,000, 10, 0.1, 0.001, and 0.00001, for a total of 1.2 million attempted genome-wide alignments. All right. Now, this is the only time that I found where he uses 10, okay? Now, he uses a wide variety. He uses 1,000, he uses 10, he uses 0.1, 0.001, and 0.00001, for a total of 1.2 million attempted genome-wide alignments. And then he goes further. He says individual BLAST-N query jobs each involved a data set of 40,000 chimpanzee whole genome shotgun sequences obtained from the National Center for Biotechnology (NCBI) and queried against 4 different human genome assemblies. And then he gives off GRCH 37, 36, alternative SNP assembly, and Celera assembly, whatever those are. All right. He goes further, says the use of low complexity masking had the effect of decreasing computational time about 5 to 6-fold, lengthening the alignment slightly, lowering the number of database hits, and lowering the percent nucleotide identity slightly, depending on the BLAST-N parameter combination. The average sequence identity for the 30 separate experiments between human and chimp varied between 86 and 89%. The average chip and query sequence length was 740 bases, and depending on the BLAST-N parameter combination, average alignment length between 121 and 191 bases. The chimp sequences were subsequently implicated by personal correspondence with NCBI staff and supporting data from this study to be pre-screened for some level of homology to the human genome. Nevertheless, including data for the large amount of chimp sequence that did not align, a very conservative estimate of human-chimp DNA similarity genome-wide is 86 to 89%, resulted from the study unequivocally indicated that the human and chimpanzee genome are at least 10 to 12% less identical than is commonly claimed. These results are more clearly in line with the large anatomical and behavioral differences observed between humans and chimps. All right. So, did Erika replicate the methods of his 2011 paper? Go all the way down here to materials and methods. Okay, he talks about what version of blast they use. The 40,000 using 40,000 sequences. Okay. Okay, most recent version of blast in variations. Okay, it says the target database masking parameter soft masking was toggled as true or false. So it depends on which experiment he's using. And he said query job length varied according to masking, word size, e-value parameter settings, with each job taking approximately 2 to 6 days to complete at Renet's settings of -10. Typically, several query jobs were running simultaneously using blast-in CPU optimization for thread numbers, parameters, number of threads. Okay, so essentially, he's using a lot of different parameters, including two different types of. We got the low complexity filters, masking, and then you also got no masking effects whatsoever. So he's got both those experiments, and within those experiments, he's got 5 e-values, 3 different word sizes. They're all being tested with concerning 40,000 sequences. Okay, now exactly what did, and of course the results vary depending on what he was using in terms of his parameter. What parameters did she use when she allegedly replicated Tomkins' method? Exactly. Because his parameters was all over the place with his 2011. Did she replicate it 5 different e-values for that? Did she replicate it both masking and unmasking? How she do that when she did the self-to-self test? My guess is that she used the usual standard parameters, probably some of them are default, but her focus in the 2011 paper was on him using ungapped parameters, which we already know the gapped and ungapped parameters don't really impact, does not impact self-to-self. Even Dr. Korf admit that. It doesn't impact self-to-self. What impacts self-to-self would be if you have some sort of low complexity filters. Low complexity filters will affect it. That's the only thing that would affect it. And so here's what the issue was. She used, I already talked about the 2013 paper, so I don't need to talk about that. Okay. But she had used random sequences. And then she has a program written by her husband that looked for those same random sequences. The problem is if she replicated at least part of his method, where Tomkins used unmasked parameters. Most of his studies was unmasked, with the exception of 2011, which was masked and unmasked. So my guess is, though, she would probably have chosen unmasked, since that's was the usual one that he had done in his other studies. So if she had used unmasked, but her vector factor, if she's looking for random sequences, and she found random sequences and then compared it with herself, she will end up getting all of these spurious alignments filtered into it. Ultimately, that's what will happen, and that's a problem. That's a problem. But the problem is that she did not replicate Tomkins' method, because Tomkins' method used the best alignment. If you use the best alignment and you compare the alignment with itself, it will always be 100%. Dr. Korf didn't think so because he wasn't aware that Tomkins had used the best alignment. And he seemed to think that somehow he's just randomly generating sequences and then comparing that. But that's not the case. He actually used the top alignment, he used the best alignment, and then he used that. That's what he used. So self-to-self would not work. Well, it would work on it if you appropriately used his alignment. So if you actually did it, and you got all this spurious stuff, but you also got the top alignment, which is the best alignment. I'm adding this in post. I'm adding this while I'm editing the video that I'm making. It's something that I realized. I've never done a blast on the command line before, so I didn't realize this at the time. And I started thinking about it. I was like, I bet you anything those things that she called variants, the ones that they had the numbers on it, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and it was like a bunch of them on there. Those were all the different alignments that was being created. The best alignment would have been the first one on that list. But because she searched for random sequences, it was actually considering the pool of alignments rather than simply the best alignment. She got 100% on the other one because it had masked the repetitive elements, which meant that it didn't create alignment with it. It masked regions that it created alignments with. So that's the reason why she got 100%. And I realized this because I remember all those that list coming up on her screen, going 1, 2, 3, 4, like it being numbered, and she called it variants when she referenced it. But I bet you those were the different alignments that were being created as a result, and I just point that out so that you understand that the best alignment on that list would have been the first one. It wouldn't have been all those alignments. It would just been that first one. But doing it the way she did it, well, I can tell why it produced the results it did. And then if you choose that, mask or unmask, and I will show you in a minute the difference, mask or unmask, it will always give you 100% if you use the best alignment. Now, if you throw random, then that's different. If you throw random and your parameter is masking, like you mask the low complexity filters, then yes, you will get 100%, definitely. Whether you use the best alignment or not, you'd get 100%. Best alignment, you're going to see this in a second, but the best alignment with all those repetitive elements filtered out, you'll see them being filtered out, and it'll result in a shorter match length, but it would be 100%. It's in the unmasked areas only, but it's the best alignment that's used if you are masking the filters, and it's 100%. And if you use mask, or if you use unmasking, then you have all the repetitive stuff in there, but it's also in the 100% range as far as the best alignment. Now, all the spurious stuff will be less than 100%. But if you do it at random, what you end up getting is sequences that are less than 100%. All right. We're going to do some blast analysis now, and just to kind of illustrate the point that I'm making. All right, let's hop to it. All right, here we are in blast. So here, nucleotide identity, that's the one that most people use, and we'll be using that today. And so this is what it looks like. We're going to be using an online version that me and Dr. Korf had walked through, and I'm going to show you what's really happening here. All right. Okay, let's begin. Okay, it must have remembered me from before. Put a line, 2 more sequences. Okay, that's exactly what we need. Somewhat similar blast in. Yep. Okay, all this is correct. We got to choose a sequence. Okay, now let's go. We're gonna go to Ensemble and look up sequences here. Before we do that, I want to show you something. I don't think that, like I said, I don't think Dr. Korf has actually seen his data. This is what his actual CSV, well, his CSV files, the raw data looks a little different, a lot different than this. The numbers are the same, but this is more organized. This is exact replica of what Erika had used in her video, and these are the contigs over here, the contiguous sequences of DNA that he is analyzing in his 2018 paper. let's do the p-ident, sort it from ascending. Okay, so now we get to see this. Okay, he mentioned these lesser sequences are going to be in the 85% range, but if you look at all his lower sequences, okay, they are not 80% range. They are actually much lower. Like most of them are less than 70, and you got some that are 80%, but not many. So this is not reflecting this is not reflecting all those spurious alignments. What this is doing, this is what he thought it was doing. But this right here, but that's only because he assumed he randomly searched for these sequences and compared irrelevant parts of the genome and things like that. That's not what he's doing here. What he's doing is he's blasting specific contigs. Like he might blast this contig right here, and he might blast it against the human genome. And when he did, he comes up with a series of search results, but he doesn't want the other search results. He doesn't want the spurious alignments. He's got other alignments that are being created because of this, because he is not masking his sequence. But he wants the best alignment. He wants the alignment that's at the top. And so that's what he's choosing, and that's what he's getting with all of these. And so they're actually representative of the best alignment. Okay, that's what they are. Now, of course, the percentage is going to be based on the length as well. This one right here is 828 base pairs long. This one's 514. This one's 1,638, etc. 982, and so forth. And so it's going to be based on the overall percentage of each of the length. And this is the average of this. So this is the average percentage of this right there. So that's essentially how that went. So he's using the best alignment. So Erica, however, is doing something different. She, well, at least with their self-to-self. Now, I don't know if she did this exactly with her other experiments. She might not have. She might have taken the best alignment. I don't know. Assumably, she took the best alignment. But on the self-to-self analysis, what she did was she shot random sequences into BLAST. And when you do that, when you don't mask the low complexity regions, you will get these other alignments, these extra alignments, these spurious alignments that are not 100%, and therefore you will get less than 100%. But then again, at what cost? You basically didn't replicate Tomkins' method, because Tomkins' method used the best alignment. All right. Again, this is partly Tomkins' fault, because he probably should have emphasized this a little bit more in his papers, and he did not do that. He should have. I think he should have emphasized it a lot more in his paper, especially when this has been made a big deal about in his interviews and talked about a lot by Tomkins in other places. But he's using the top result. He's not actually using the spurious stuff. He's using the best alignment, is essentially what he's doing. All right, so we're going to take a specific contig. This is a specific contig in the chimp genome. We're going to copy it, okay? And we're going to blast it. Oh, there it is right there. Yeah. Yep. Now we're going to export data. All right, so we're going to choose file. Let's see, let's go to downloads. Yep, right here. Open. And then we're gonna blast this against itself, because that's mainly what we're looking for. We're not gonna blast against the human genome right now. We're not doing a full genomic comparisons and things like that. What we're doing is we're testing the self-to-self analysis. So all that requires is that I test the same gene. Okay. The same contig in this case. All right, so I got that done. Okay, we're going to blast in. Okay, whoops. All right, let's do it as 10. That's what's suggested to me by Dr. Rob Carter. I did this at the E value. I set it really, really low. I set it to 0.0001. I think that one of the parameters he used in his 2011 paper was pretty much close to this. I think maybe add an extra 0. So we're going to, let's do this mask first. So, well, no, let's do it unmasked first so you can see the full sequence. All right. So let's blast it. It's going to give me I put it in a separate window because I usually like working it like that. Okay, here's the config. Okay, let's go to alignments. You notice it's 100% identical. All right. Now, other alignments are also created. You notice that if you do it unmasked, okay, you got this alignment up top. This is the best alignment. The expect value at random is 0.0. This is the best alignment, 100%. And you always get 100% with the best alignment. This is no masking, so this includes the repeats. Now, what Dr. Korf is talking about is you also end up getting other alignments, and these alignments are not 100%. They're usually in the 80% range, usually. Now the expect value is still 0.0, but they're including some or most of the content or most of the repeat sequence or maybe all the repeat sequences plus some of the other sequences, but they're not. But you notice they're not 100%. Okay, you notice they're not 100%. So it's 84%. Now, if you do this at random, you're going to get these other alignments. Let me see. Yep, load next set. So there's like 65 to 1503. So there's like 1,503 different match or alignments that have been made over this. So I could go down here for a long time, get all the way to the bottom, and then load the next set, and I keep going like that until I got over 1,000 different search results as a result of, or the alignment results. So the alignments are going to be spurious from after the first one. The first one includes all of it and is always the best alignment. So if you choose the best alignment and you do it against itself, it's always going to be 100%. In a little bit, I'm gonna show you this. I'll go ahead and show it to you. Okay, if I do this as a dot graph, okay, now this one's kind of all over the place when I did the contig because it's got all of these alignments. It's got lots and lots of extra space alignments. I'm going to show you another one here in a little bit. It's going to be a little bit more simpler with the line across, and it's not going to look as messy as this. But this obviously has a lot of extra alignments around. A lot of this is repeats and things like that because of it being unmasked. And like I said, if you don't choose the best alignment, all of these, if you do it at random, look at how, if you did this at random, look at this and what you're going to be aligning. You're aligning all of these extra sequences, and you can look at them and you could tell they're not at 100% just by looking at them. You know that they're not at 100%. And so that's what she's picking up when she's doing her self-to-self analysis. Because she's not using best alignment, she's throwing it random. She's choosing random sequences and then realigning those random sequences. But if you choose random sequences, then some of the sequences that you're going to be picking up are going to be the first ones as well. The ones that are based on these repeats that got that has been masked out or not been masked out. In this case, I masked the repeats. So it's got the alignment, but it doesn't have any of the repeats. You notice there's no repeats on this. And the reason is because all the repeats are down here. You see how, look at the repeats. I mean, there's lots and lots of repeats. You look down and you go, these are all creating other alignments, but these alignments are not at 100%. That's the reason why she got less than 100%. When she threw out random into the computer for random sequences and it's unmasked, this becomes the result. That's why she got that. Korf assumed that Dr. Tomkins did something similar, but Dr. Tomkins did not. What Dr. Tomkins did was he took the top result, which is the best alignment. And if you take the best alignment and you align it against itself, it's all, which is what I did here, and you see this is the best alignment, it's always going to be 100%. Always. Because it's going to be along that major diagonal that he was talking about. That major diagonal, and you'll see it more clearly in one of the experiments that we're fixing to do, but this is the major diagonal, and along that major diagonal, it's always going to be 100%. Even Dr. Korf said that. If it's along that major diagonal, it'll be 100%. If you do it randomly, then this is your vector. If you do randomly like this, unmask, look at all the possibilities. And you could tell these are not at 100% just by looking at them. And this is kind of messy because there's a lot of alignments that's being caused by this, right? All right, now let's go to X out of that one. Now we're going to try to mask it, and we're going to see the results there. So we're going to do low. I think it's normally on default. It's usually set like this, but this right here doesn't really matter a whole lot from what I understand. All right, so we're going to do the mask the lowercase letters and low complexity regions. Yeah, we can do a hard mask. This is a hard mask where you just kind of mask a whole bunch of stuff. Let's just do that real quick and see what that looks like. Again, best result, 100%. Okay, if that doesn't change. All right, let's go to the next match. The next one, however, is 84%, same as before. So you still wind up with that same problem if you are masking it or unmasking it. Okay, you still have these spurious alignments. Go next match. So all these alignments are being created as a result of masking and not masking, and your E values. All these things can affect noise in the background. Okay, if you do random, then you wind up random unmask will wind up with all kinds of problems in terms of percentage. You will get less than 100% every single time because of all that background noise, all that noise as a result of masking. You're going to end up getting less than 100% if you're tracking it that way. If you're doing it Tomkins' way and you blast a specific sequence, then you wind up with the top result being the best alignment. In fact, the top result's always the best alignment. Okay, and he's choosing the top result. He's choosing the best alignment. He's not choosing these other alignments because they are spurious. But when she did it at random, that's exactly what she did. Now, Carter had actually given me a sequence to blast, so I can understand this better. So I blasted that sequence. It's a very small sequence, so it'd be easier to illustrate what I'm talking about. So let's go back to it. All right, I'm here. He gave me a very short sequence to do, so that's what I did. All right, I got that. Let's add an extra 0 to that. You want to make your E value very low. All right, we're going to not mask it first, and then we're going to use masking. So let's go to it. All right. So it's one selected sequence. This is the same sequence against itself. Okay, if we go to alignments, we see it's 100%, but we have no extra alignments. Okay, there's no noise. I set the E value very low, and what happened is I didn't do any masking. There's no repeats. All the repeats are in the main alignment, and so this is 100%. See, 100%. All right, now we're going to try masking. Okay, we're going to load masking. Let's do a soft masking. Mask lowercase letters. We're not going to worry about this one. This one right here, I think it's not even relevant to what we're doing. So we're going to leave that like it is. All right, so it's this is a soft masking. So let's hop to it. All right, again, alignments. Notice this time the match sequence is shorter because there's no repeats in it. But the best alignment is still 100%. So mask or unmask, the best alignment is always 100%. Now, when you move on here, you see where the repeats went to. It went to these extra matches. And apparently there was 514 other alignments. Okay, some of these are also at 100% because they're nothing but repeats. All right, so if you go to the next one, you go to this one, it's nothing but repeats. That's why it's also at 100% because it's basically all the repeats. All the repeats that was in here are now in here, or on the length. It's 100% because the repeats all match up. But in this case, the top result still 100%. Now this is not always 100% in this Spurious. For some reason the sequence is, but you kind of can see all the repeats that have been masked out here are not here. See the lowercase letters, we masked that out in the above, but you see it here. You see all of the repetitive elements right here. You see it constantly repeats, and all that appeared in the extra alignments. It's disappeared here. You see that this is now shorter, right? Because there's no repeats in it. But even then, it's still 100%. So the best alignment, masked or unmasked, would still be 100%. It's in the unmasked areas only, of course. It's in the areas that are not masked, because this is not, the repeats are masked, but this right here isn't masked. So it would be 100% of that. And so whether you use masked or unmasked, it's going to be 100% on the best alignment. Let me show you another way, because like I said, I mentioned before that that the other one, there seems to be a space in here. I think this is between the different alignments, because there's two alignments, right? And these are between the two alignments. But both of these are 100% because they're both along the major diagonal. But the repeats are an extra alignment because they also make an alignment. But there was the same amount, but based on the length and based on the overall percentage, and they equal 100%. And Tomkins, he is taking the best alignment. So when you take something on the best alignment and you do it against itself, it's always 100%. What Erika'S doing is he's doing it at random. Hello everybody, I'm adding this in post. I'm doing it while I'm editing the video, and I decided to add an extra thing in there. Originally I thought that she was randomizing the sequences and getting the sequences at random. I'm not suspecting that as much as I did originally. I might have misunderstood something about the random, where she gets the random sequences. So see, with her doing it, I'm thinking the problem is her executable. I'm thinking she's taking the average of all the hits rather than best hit. See, what Tomkins did is he took the best hit. Dr. Ian Korf believed that that Tomkins was taking the average of all the spurious alignments, but that wasn't the case. What Dr. Tomkins did was he took the top results. He took the best alignment because he knew that these other alignments were not true alignments, that these other alignments were not was spurious, that they would not, that they were other alignments that were being created, but he wanted the best alignment. So he took the best alignment. He took the top result. And so Dr. Korf misunderstood Tomkins' research. He assumed, and he still assumes it. I just spoke with him not too long ago, but he still assumes it that Dr. Tomkins is taking the sum total of all the alignments and adding together, and that's how he's coming up with his each percentage for the different contigs and sequences that he's doing. But that's not the case. What he's doing is he's taking the best alignment. He's taking the top results, and he's using the best alignment as the percentage identity. He's ignoring all the spurious stuff, which is what he should do, because they're not their true alignment. There are other alignments that are created, but they're not along that major diagonal that Dr. Korf had talked early on in this video. And so he doesn't take those. So he's not averaging the total. But I'm thinking that Erica is doing that. She's taking the total percentage of the alignment identity. And I think part of the problem is the way her executable does it. Carter believes that Erica does not know what she's doing, and I'm not going to go into details of that. He has some pretty strong opinions about what he thinks on that matter, and I'm just going to kind of leave it there. But there's no offense to Erica, but I don't think she knows what she's doing either. I don't. I think she is making one mistake after the next because she doesn't understand how these things are done, and she keeps on making more mistakes. And I think she'll be making more. There's a couple that she caught herself, and there's others she won't admit. She still won't admit the ungap thing's a problem. I spoke with her earlier, and I wasn't getting into a debate with her. She knows how I feel about that, so I just left it alone. I was like, I disagree with you on some stuff that you've said, but we weren't debating, and I did ask you what you thought on certain matters, and you told me, and that sort of thing. Of course, we wouldn't really talk about gap versus ungap, but in any case, she brought it up anyhow. But I'm not going to, again, I'm not going to voice what she told me, because that's neither here nor there anyhow. But the gap and ungap have nothing to do with why she got less than 100% on self to self, because you would get 100% regardless on self to self, regardless the size of the sequence, whether you break it up or not, it doesn't matter, because the match length is automatically taken into consideration. If I have $10 bills laying across the table, and I have another $10 bills laying across the table, that second row of $10 bills is 100% identical to the $10 bills. But what if I took 5 of them out of the way? It's still 100% identical. It's like, why? How is that possible? It's missing 5 because it's identical in the $5 that remains. Because when you're doing an alignment, you're looking for similarities, not differences, as Dr. Korf himself acknowledges. So the other $5 that is there, it gets skipped over because it's basically not an actual similarity or difference, but it's still going to count that. So if the $5 is the same as the other $5, it's going to give 100%, even though the sequence is shorter. It's going to still give 100%. And so that's what's happening in Blast. It would give 100% no matter what. Gap versus ungap, not the issue at all. As Dr. Korf said, you can do an ungap study and that sort of thing. If you want to, there could be some differences, whatever, but it's not what pushing the 85% number, as Carter mentioned. It's not the issue. I think the only one that's really making an issue out of that is Erica. I was hoping she, after Carter's response, she would abandon the whole gap versus ungap, but she hasn't completely abandoned it. She's just found a new nuance to her argument that she wants to use instead of what she basically argued in her main video. And so she's running with that. It's also fallacious, but I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna go into it because she's gotta do that in her main video and just present that, and I don't feel comfortable talking about what she told me in confidence, so I'm not gonna display that information. But me and Ruhef has had discussions concerning the same issue and an argument and that sort of thing, so I have a pretty good idea of where she's going to go from there on that. But in any given case, but gap versus ungap has nothing to do with the self to self in terms of percent identity. It shouldn't have. It's really not even really that big of a issue. You can do a blast study using ungapped alignments. So ungapped and gapped are not the problem. Geneticists do both, and so that's not even the issue. Erika'S making it out to be the issue, but it's not the issue. And it certainly would not be the issue with self to self, because you'd still wind up with 100%, even if you did it ungapped or gapped. It wouldn't matter which one you did. You would wind up with 100% identity, regardless. I think their issue is masking. Masking and Erika not choosing the best alignment. Since Tomkins chose the best alignment, the masking would not have been as much of an issue. It would only be an issue if he had totaled or averaged out the different hits that you received. Like if he received so many hits, like let's say he received 5,000 hits and he took those 5,000 hits and he averaged out the percentage, based on all the percentages. Like he add the percentage together and then come up with the average. All right, and then that became that particular context percentage average, and then he did it for the next one. That's what Dr. Korf assumes that Tomkins had done, but Tomkins didn't do that. What Tomkins did instead is he got all of these alignments, including spurious ones, but he took the best alignment at top. The best alignment is always the one along the major diagonal. It's always the one along the major diagonal. And if you take the best alignment and you align against itself, it would always equal 100%. Then why didn't she equal 100% with Tomkins? This is the part that I'm exploring more because I think she is she's taking the total amount of hits. I think she's actually doing the very thing that Dr. Korf thinks that Tomkins is doing. I think that's what she's doing. She's doing the very thing that he's accusing him of, except he's not doing that. What he's doing is he's taking the best alignment. So essentially put, Erika'S not replicating his method correctly. And 2011 one is an interesting one, and I did ask her about that in my last email to her about the 2011 paper. I don't know if she's going to send back a response of what she did on that or not. I don't know. But in this 2011 paper, as you saw, a wide variety of parameters was being used, and both masking and unmasking was used in two separate experiments. And in addition to that, in both experiments, 5 different E values, including ones that were very low, as well as ones that were very high, was used in the experiments, in the method, and that was part of his method. And in addition to that, 3 different word sizes were used. So, what did she use? Did she arbitrarily pick which ones to do? Was she just focused on the ungapped alignment of 2011? Was masking not something that she even think that was a problem at the time? Did she do all of them? I don't know. She doesn't say. The only thing she says about the 2011 that I took from watching some clips is to focus on ungapped alignment, which wouldn't be a problem, especially for self-to-self. So, I don't know what she did with 2011. I don't know how she even did it. What criteria did she make on which parameter to use, which e value, which whether to do masking or unmasking. Unless, of course, she did all of that. But I don't think she did all of that. So that's the part I don't understand. But anyway, sometimes she'll take a couple days to get back to me. So we'll see if she gets back to me on that and find out how she actually handled herself with the 2011 paper. Because I honestly don't believe she did every single parameter. I really don't. But we'll see. In any given case, I do want to point out something while I'm already here talking to you guys. This video is not intended to be a stop all and the end all discussion on self-to-self analysis. I get there's much more that we can hash out. There's things that I want to find out more concerning your executable. Is she totaling the average out? Is there a problem with the program? That's what Carter still holds to the idea that there's an issue there somewhere. He thinks there's some foul play going on. But like I said, I'm not going to go into details of what he said. I'm leaving that between me and Carter. But the point, though, it being is that he still holds to an idea of his computer program, and it could be a problem there. I don't know if there's a problem there. I'm not saying that this is the only issue open to it, but the low complexity issue that has been brought up by Dr. Korf, I think is a good one. I think he's kind of barking up the wrong tree thinking that Tomkins is doing this when Erika'S actually doing this. So I think that he's barking up the wrong tree on that. But I don't want to get in a prolonged debate. He don't usually deals with the controversial subject matter, so I'm even fortunate enough for him to answer any of my questions, given the fact that he knows I'm part of this controversy. But so I'm trying not to get into debates with him and say, okay, I'm obviously going to disagree with him on a number of issues, but that's fine. But in any given case, that's what I think is happening. I think Erika is doing the very thing that Dr. Korf is accusing Tomkins of. But Dr. Tomkins is not doing that. Dr. Tomkins is taking the best alignment. Which also would mean that Erika did not replicate his method correctly when she did self-to-self. If she had, she would have gotten 100%. Because if you replicate Tomkins' method correctly, you always get 100% alignment, just like Carter did. You always do. And the reason is because the same sequence along the major diagonal compared to the same sequence on the major diagonal is going to be 100%. It's going to be 100% every single time. Every time you run it. That's the reason why Carter kept getting 100%. Erika didn't get 100% because that's not what she did. She did not take the best alignment. What did she do? I think she took the total alignment hits. It's kind of like if you take the total percentage and then average that. Which, if you do it on masking, you could probably succeed in that, right? Because if you got 100%, 100%, 100% all the way down, eventually, and you calculate it all up, eventually it's going to come to 100%. It's because it's 100%, right, all the way down. But if you got different sequences, different alignments, short ones, long ones, whatever the case may be, and they're all being totaled up, then the percentage is going to be less than 100%. And so I think that's what she did. So I think she's doing the very thing that Dr. Korf has accused Tomkins of, except Tomkins isn't doing that. What Tomkins is doing is he's taking the best alignment. So that's what I think is actually going on here. So as far as the randomness, I know I said that a lot, several times probably. Just kind of ignore that because I don't think that, I think I might have misunderstood the random thing there. But I'm already almost done with editing and I'm already late getting this video out. So I'm not going to go back and fix that into the thing. I'm just going to add that here. But I don't think it's because she's randomly selecting the sequences. That's why I thought it was at first, because Dr. Korf was talking to me about a lot about randomness and e-values and things like that. But that mostly centers around e-values, and he doesn't think that's the primary issue right now. He thinks it's an issue, but he doesn't think it's the main issue. But in any case, I just wanted to add that in. I do think that Erica is making a grave error here, and I took a lot of time to try to figure out what that was, because I know it's one of the biggest mysteries in all of the discussion here, is how she got less than 100%. She still holds to the idea that ungapped alignment had something to do with her getting less than 100%, but that's not the case. I will deal with that argument later once she's actually presented it publicly, because I don't want to sit there and steal a thunder or portray some kind of confidence and things like that. I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to let her flesh out her arguments, and then I'll respond accordingly after she does it. But I just wanted to bring up that I do have some ideas of what's causing the issue, and I know where the problem is. I think I'm convinced I know where the problem is. This doesn't mean that there isn't more to hash out. There could be a lot more to hash out. There could be issues involved with our program. There's issues involved. I'm not saying that there is something wrong with the program. I'm saying there could be. And we need to look into all these things. That's fine. So don't act as if this is a once all for self to self alignments. This is just a starting point for the discussion on it. But I think that overall the issue is, if you do it unmasked, and if you do masking or unmasking, it depends on what study you're doing, whether you do masking or unmasking. Obviously, Dr. Korf is very much against masking. That's his personal view on it. I think, but it also depends, one, kind of study you're doing, and two, whether you want to include every difference, because repetitive elements contains a lot of similarities and differences, and you obviously want to include that if you're trying to come up with a true similarity and difference, which he was, Tomkins, that is. And that's the reason why he wanted to include every sequence. And and if you're going to do something like that, though, you go with the best alignment, because you're going to wind up with a lot of spurious alignments, and you don't want to take these because they're short, they're long, they're all sorts of lengths, and they're all kinds of alignments. And if you actually look at these, a lot of these would be the same. It would be the same sequence. Like if you did a sequence, you can create different alignments out of that same sequence all over the place. You can create thousands, potentially thousands, that you can create just off that one sequence. And so Tom says, I know these other alignments. These other alignments are going to be created as a result of this, but I'm not going to take those. I'm going to take the best alignment. I'm going to take the one at the top. And by default, Blast pushes the best alignment at the top. But I don't think Erika'S using the best alignment. I think she is combining the sum total of all the alignments and determining the average percentage from that, or the percentage from that. That's what I think she's doing. I'm not 100% sure on that one point, but I think that's what she's doing. I'm pretty confident of it, that that's what's happening. Because we already know that if you align against itself, no matter what parameter you use, whether you're using masking or unmasking, the best alignment always equals 100%. And I've done this several times. It always equals 100%. The only ones that don't are the extra alignments. They don't equal 100%. There are additional alignments. And if you total those, if you just kind of take all of the alignments together, it's kind of like repeating several sequences or something. But if you take them all together, then eventually, the percent, you're going to wind up, self to self, it will be less than 100%. But if you do with the best alignment, it's always going to equal 100%. So if she did it according to Tomkins' actual methods, she would have done 100%. It would have gone 100% every single time. But she didn't do that. I don't think Dr. Korf understood Dr. Tompkins' method. And I don't mean no disrespect to him. He's a nice guy. But I don't think he understood his method. I don't think he's actually seriously read his paper. Maybe some parts of it or portions of it. But I don't think he's actually took the time to actually commit himself to reading the studies. Erika'S probably read more of his studies than Dr. Korf is. And I have too. Because I've read all his papers. I read his 2011 paper. I wasn't really focused too much on his 2011 paper before. I think I've read it before, but it's not. But I read it much more extensively in recent times. His 2018 paper and his 2016 paper, I've read tons of times. But I read his 2013 paper. I read some of this 2015 paper. This one doesn't apply to an actual study, or it does, but it doesn't. It's like I said, it's like a retraction of his 2013 paper. Just kind of like him redoing it and saying, okay, this was an issue. Obviously, we didn't get an accurate number, but here we're redoing this. We're using last D. We're doing all these other things, and to see what we get. I've seen his data. I've got his data in my Excel file. I also have talked to Tomkins both on the phone and through emails. So we've had significant conversations about these things, and I know for a fact he did tell me that he's using the best alignment. I don't think Erika'S doing that. I asked her point blank if she was doing that. She hasn't responded yet, but maybe she will. I don't know. But I don't think she's using best alignment. I think she is taking the sum total of the different alignments, and then she's coming up with a percentage based upon all of the hits, rather than a specific hit, particularly the best hit, or she's choosing, or it's not picking the best hit. It's just picking a particular hit within that list of hits, which of course not all of them are 100%, right? Some of them are not 100%. And so if she's doing that, then she's going to get less than 100% alignment on self to self as well. But we know that gap and ungap has nothing to do with self to self. Nothing. Not one bit. Now you could try, even arguing that with conventional, it's kind of hard to do. But ungap gives you higher percentages than gapped anyhow. So, Korf believes that it'd probably be better to use gap, but only because gap gives you lower percentages than ungap. Ungap gives you a higher percentage. That's all I wanted to add in post, and I just wanted to bring up a few points and discuss, because just because the video got made doesn't mean I stopped talking to people or having conversations and having some good conversations with several people, but that happened too. But anyway, back to the video. But when she does the what she calls the quote unquote good method, she is doing it random, but she's doing it masked. When you do it masked, or doing it masking the low complexity regions, this means all of the low complexity regions wind up being filtered out as a result. Show again. Winds up being filtered out as a result. And they get thrown into the spurious alignments. But you notice when you masked it, this extra alignment was also 100%. So even when you get random and you do it randomly, you're still going to wind up with 100% as a result if it's masked. And that's the reason why she kept winding up 100% using her quote unquote good method, because she was using masking. When you use Tomkins' method, or at least she replicated Tomkins' method in part, at least part of the masking, but you do it randomly, then you end up with a result that is less than 100%. But if you sit there and use the best alignment, and the best alignment against itself, masking, unmasking, gapped, ungapped, whatever the parameters, always equals 100%. And this is why Dr. Rob Carter in his video always got 100%. Because he was comparing best alignment with the best alignment along the major diagonal that was mentioned by Dr. Korf. And Erica, when she does self-to-self, she did it randomly. And doing the so-called good method would yield 100% if it's masked. In the case of Tomkins' method, since Tomkins' method was unmasked, but she didn't use best alignment, and it comes to 100%. And the best alignment is going to be best alignment 100%. This is why she got less than 100%. So this is exactly the reason why. And the sequences are unmasked. The repetitive elements get put off into all these extra alignments. Because otherwise, if you do it with mask, if you do it unmasked, if you do it unmasked, all these repetitive elements right up here, you still wind up with extra alignments, though. Even then, again, lots of different things affect the results, the kind of e-value you use, things like that. And so if you do self-to-self analysis, doing it the way Tomkins do, you do wind up with 100%. Now, I know that Dr. Korf doesn't hold to this because he misunderstood Tomkins' study. He didn't know that Tomkins is actually using the best alignment. Instead, he thinks that Tomkins is kind of looking for these random sequences, the way Erica did in her self-to-self analysis, and that's what he's assuming Tomkins is doing. However, Tomkins is not doing that. He is taking a specific contig or data set or sequence, however you want to put it, and he's blasting that against the human genome. And when he blasts against the human genome, he gets, X amount of value and as the best alignment. And that's what he's using. So he's not doing any of these spurious alignments. Rather, he's choosing the top alignment. He's choosing the best alignment. And then that is what he's reporting on. That is what is in his data, etc., etc. That's what he's reporting on. He's not randomly searching for sequences the way Erica did. And so the reason why Erica got less than 100% is simply because she randomly searched for these sequences unmasked. When you do that, that results from that. And then when you sit there and when you do apply low complexity filters, then what happens is that you will end up getting 100%. You will end up getting 100% when you align self to self if you are doing random. However, this doesn't defeat Tomkins' study at all, since Tomkins did use the best alignment. Now, my biggest issue is that he didn't emphasize this more in his papers. And it's kind of hard to really blame Erica completely, because if he doesn't, because all she has to work off of is his papers. Because most people don't have, a direct line to Dr. Tomkins to talk to him about it, or has seen every interview that he's been in and so forth. So he really needed to emphasize this more in his papers than he did. And that's one of the biggest issues, because it's kind of hard to blame Erica because she's working off of what he said in his papers. But at the same time, this is what he did. So, a little research goes a long way. But anyway, he took the top alignment, he took the best alignment, and that's what he's using. Now, if you do that with self-to-self, it will always equal 100%, which is exactly what Dr. Carter had done, and that's exactly the reason why he kept getting 100%. No matter what he did, even if you use masking or unmasking, you still wind up with 100% because the best alignment is always going to be 100%. Always. and that's why he wound up with 100% as well. So this has been kind of a long video, I know, but this was a very important topic. I was really excited when I discovered this, and Carter even congratulated me, and he's like, "You rock." That's what he said in the email. It was like, yeah, and and he was helping me hammer out some of the details, though. I really appreciate that Dr. Carter helped me hammer out a few of the details, but it was great to explore that, because I knew that Erica was going to eventually defend her computer program. I mean, after all, her husband wrote the program that was searching for these sequences. So I was sure that she was going to defend it in some way. And so I wanted to know if there is any other way that you could possibly get less than 100%, without assuming that there's something wrong with their program, less than 100% identity. And I found the answer to that. And Dr. Korf was a big help on that. I know me and him disagree quite extensively. There's another video, another clip that we did where we almost got into a debate, essentially. It was the closest we had gotten into a debate since starting this. So I try to stay away from debating them, because that was not the point of my conversations with them. So it would maintain its level as a discussion. And granted that we do have some serious disagreements. A lot of the mistakes that Korf made was when he started to wander outside his area of expertise, or when he started talking about Tomkins as a study. And I think most of his information, at least most of it, came third party from Erica. Either Erica told him that, or discussed it with him, or he saw Erika'S video, eventually, and that sort of thing. So I think all of his information, or at least most of his information, from Tomkins's study has come that way. And she told him the parameters. I don't know why she told him e-value 10. There's only one paper that he used the e-value 10, and that was in his 2011 paper, and that's only because he used a wide variety of other e-values too, including 0.01, including 0.00001, and so forth. And so he used a wide variety of e-values there, 5 different e-values. He used both masking and unmasking. So I'm not exactly sure how she could have possibly replicated that, unless she replicated each experiment, both masking and unmasking. But more than likely, her focus on the 2011 paper was primarily on the ungapped parameter, which does not impact self-to-self at all. Everyone seems to be in agreement with that, with the exception of Erica, maybe. But we'll see. Erica's supposed to be doing a response video to Tomkins' as a video, and in that she's supposed to respond to some things that I've said, and some things on the Richard Buggs situation, and so we'll see how that goes. I'm expecting it to come out soon. I don't know when it'll come out. I don't know if it'll come out before this video is uploaded or after this video is uploaded. I don't know. I gotta edit this video. I've got a lot of editing to do with this video as well, so I'll be taking the week to do that, and hopefully it'll be uploaded by this Friday, I'm hoping. But this has been a great video. This is actually an important part of this controversy, because that was one of the biggest mysteries of this controversy. And I'll be honest, if I'm just sitting down and being absolutely honest with you guys, that was probably the most complex. That's the thing that really baffled my mind. I couldn't figure it out. For the longest time, I could not figure it out. I don't like it when I can't figure something out. I want to be able to figure this out. And so I go off and I research and I talk to people and I collab and I discuss things and I go back and forth and try to figure this out. And so, sure enough, I think I've got a good handle on why she got less than 100%. Of course, it doesn't matter in terms of controls, because she didn't fully replicate Tomkins' method. If she fully replicated Tomkins' method, then she would have gotten 100%. She would have gotten 100% because he used the best alignment, which is how Carter kept getting 100% as a result, because he was using the best alignment, using the top result. And even unmasking, even if you mask the repetitive elements, the unmasked areas will still be 100%. You will still got 100% on that. If you mask the area, if you don't mask the areas, you get 100%. If you do mask the areas, you get 100%. If you are using best alignment. But if you're using random sequences in both her original video response to Tomkins and in her original response to my Tomkins interview, or her response to my Tomkins interview, she had used random sequences. She searched for random sequences, unmask, and this causes less than 100%. Now, whether Erica has figured this out or not, I don't know. But I'm the first to actually figure it out and publicize it. Dr. Quarf figured some parts of it out, but I think he didn't understand Tompkins' study, and that was one of the biggest brick walls in his discussion with me on this, because I don't think he fully understood what was going on. I think most of his information about Tompkins' study has come third party through Erica, and not from him actually researching it and being part of it. I was part of this controversy for a very long time. I have studied his papers. I know his papers pretty well at this point, and I've seen all the videos and things like that. So I'm very well versed in it. But I think that, you know, he's kind of a newcomer to the Tompkins controversy. He wasn't really trying to get too much into the controversy, but he was interested enough to get a little bit further into it. I think Dr. Korf has helped me out a lot, despite me and his significant differences. We got loads and loads of differences. And I probably will be talking about that later more, because of the fact that I plan on doing a video on controls, because that's another thing that me and Dr. Quarf and Erica disagree on, because again, he's taking third party. He thinks Tompkins didn't use controls. Tompkins did use controls, and I'm going to demonstrate that in that video. But that's going to be a separate video in the Tompkins controversy series. So I hope y'all liked this content. It's been a long one. My voice is already cracked because of how much talking I've done in this discussion. But feel free to subscribe to my channel, like the video below, give it a thumbs up, please. Help support the channel. I do, like I said at the beginning, I do a lot of work behind the scenes that y'all don't see. A lot of research, a lot of talking to people, a lot of emails, a lot of discussions. I'm constantly working very hard on this. So please support the channel, subscribe to it, like the videos, drop a comment below. Don't forget to hit the notification bell. And I will see you on the next one.